Billings, Montana work session for January 20th, 2026. I'm glad that you're all here. This is a work session, so please know we won't be making any formal decisions tonight. It's an opportunity for us to discuss matters with the staff and hear public comment. We will be taking public comment a number of times tonight. This is a time to comment on any matter which is agenda or non-agenda related that falls within the scope of the Billings City Council. There will also be time in conjunction with each agenda item for public comment relating to that item. But remember now, you can only speak once for each item tonight. So not once on item 1 before that and once on item 2. That doesn't work, just once on each item. And also, please, this will not be the time for applause or boos or any type of response to the public comment. We want to foster open communication, and we want to foster a free and open environment for people to speak their minds. And applause or boos would keep that from happening. So with that, please note, again, we won't be taking action on any item of significant interest to the public that does not appear to the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes each, and public comment period as set by me. So speaker sign-in is required. It's back there by the door, so please sign in if you intend to speak. I'm going to be opening the public comment period now, and when I do, please, one at a time, come up to the podium and pay attention to the timer behind you. So I am opening this now to public comment. Is there any public comment?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tucker Colvin, and I live in the North Park neighborhood of Billings. I am speaking on the issue of ICE in Billings today. To start out, I know the City of Billings cannot do anything to limit the actions of ICE or federal law enforcement within our city. And I also know that the 2021 legislature, House Bill 200, prohibits cities from refusing to cooperate with immigration officials or federal officers. But given this, I urge the City of Billings to do as much as it can to keep residents safe and limit cooperation with ICE as much as possible, including refusing to sign a 287G agreement. So instead of deporting the so-called criminal immigrants, as was originally stated by the president, ICE has been coming into communities and they are, 1, profiling people based on race and accents, 2, demanding people show proof of citizenship, and 3, snatching up people without saying why or even identifying themselves. All these events have been very well documented, and all 3 of these things are illegal. It has been also documented that ICE has been hiring inadequate hires and inadequately training them as well. So the Billings PD is overall a much more professional and well-trained agency than ICE. And so for liability, public safety, and optic reasons, Billings PD should distance themselves as much as they can from ICE's reckless and lawless acts. ICE is coming into communities and creating violence. And as we have seen in Minneapolis and in other cities, this violence does have victims, immigrants and non-immigrants alike. Another point I want to bring up is that immigrants, whether they are here through the correct immigration process or not, they are neighbors, our businesses' workers and customers, and are people just like anybody else. And as a reminder, regardless of how someone comes to the US, they have not committed a crime, because immigration is a civil process, not a criminal one. And illegal immigrants is a political term, not a legal one. Montana prides itself on standing up for law and justice and being independent from government overreach, whether that's the vigilantes back in Virginia City taking on a criminal sheriff, or the trucks that are driving all over town with their "Don't Tread on Me" license plates. It's time that we hold true to these values and stand up for our community, and in the face of laws at the state level restricting our local control of our town, and laws and policies at the federal level that are creating violence and separating people from their families and their community. So I urge you all to be sure Billings does not sign a 287G agreement, meet with city law enforcement to ensure they don't cooperate with ICE, and to use your prominent positions to advocate for some of the most vulnerable people in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Mark Stewart. I'm the retired conference minister with the United Church of Christ in Montana and northern Wyoming. And like the previous gentleman, I appeal to the city council not to enter into any relationship with ICE or CBP, or their destabilizing of civic order and contempt for common decency is well documented. So I hope that we not get Billings enmeshed with ICE. And I thank you for your service to the community and for caring about the safety and well-being of our citizens and residents. Thank you very much.
Michael, listen to this. My name is Kieran Fury. I am following the lead of the previous two gentlemen. I just want to make sure to make it clear to City Council that I fear the city would enter into a 287 G partnership with ICE, and I don't want that under any circumstances. I don't think our police should collaborate with ICE at all. I think it'd probably be a waste of city time and resources. I don't think that our police, which I think are a working, good organization, should be wasting any of their time working with a metaphorical gang of untrained civilians. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Paul Clark, Ward 1. Among other things on my list, let's talk about ICE and let's talk about what is going on. There's a thing called the Constitution, and ICE will follow the Constitution that is written by the law. On the other side, you have protesters. Protesters, there's peaceful protesting, and then there's called agitation. And I think what we're coming across there in Minnesota is agitation. And I believe that the ICE agents are doing what they are doing by Constitution. Also on Sunday, they invaded a church, these agitators. Those are federal laws, people. And when you go into a church, whether it's a mosque, the Jewish temples, Mormon temples, you don't go in and disrupt. There's 3 laws in there, and I'll be darned if I can remember 2 of them. But one has to do back when 1870s, when the KKK was involved in the South. So let's go there. Okay, that's out of my way. That was a minute. Southside lights. Again, you guys have seen me at certain meetings. I won't name which one. And you know that my concern is lights. We need more down there on the south side. We need more everywhere. And if that requires putting them underground or wiring, however, but we need to get after the Montana Power and get them to agree to bring us some lights. The 6th Street underpass, again, that was addressed by Council Member Kennedy, and he said that they will, not on a mandatory basis, but on a regular basis, wash that 6th Street underpass out from dead birds and bad odor from pigeon, you know what. The pool, the Southside pool. It's going to be a great idea. We don't know quite what it's going to look like, but I would like to get my eyes on a $9 million project, and I believe that's coming really soon. And thank you for coming to bat for Southside. Hey, might as well go get my toes wet if I have to. The thing that was at the meeting, we had Mr. Gavin come up, and he talked about the price increases to use the city park, even though I'm a citizen of Billings and I pay my taxes. Now I have to pay to use the gazebo or any other kind of function if I'm not a 501c project. We have the Easter egg coming up, and that falls underneath the category. And we're always looking for more volunteers to help us with the Easter egg, of course. And lastly, the sugar factory. 1926, I believe. They're habitual polluters to the water system. They have, I've had my well treated, and there are not high levels, but there are levels of carcinogenics, toxins, and other things that are caused by the seepage in the ground, no less than the big sky, linen, the plume. And I wish I had 3 more minutes, but I don't. God bless.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Harrison, and I live on the south side, Billings. I wanted to just start by thanking Mayor Nelson for your words that you said on Saturday, was that? At the Martin Luther King Day event at MSUB. It was my first time hearing you speak publicly in your new role, and I just truly appreciated the words that you say. I know you very little from working under you here in Billings at Bernie's, and so the little I know of you, I know that you take your words seriously. You are a genuine and a sincere person, and I just appreciate you. And I wanted to quote you: "Every time we don't speak up, we leave work unfinished." If I had recorded everything, I probably would be here to repeat that. But anyways, I agree with you, and a lot of my community members are here today to speak up. We all do have constitutional rights, all of us, and constitutional rights are being violated across our country right now. We are seeing it blatantly, indeed, in many cities across the country, especially, I would say, in Minnesota. And yes, ICE agents have constitutional rights too, of course. Every human being on this land has constitutional rights and also human rights. I would implore you all, I know this is probably more of a county issue, but do not work in partnership with any ICE agents if you have the choice, if you have the ability. They also have been committing a lot of horrendous crimes as well. And I don't find any law enforcement agency to be taken seriously when they themselves, when their representatives are committing horrendous crimes. So I just implore you to please just work to keep our community members safe, regardless of immigration status. And again, I would just like to remind everyone, immigration is a civil matter. It is not a criminal matter. People have some immigration documents that they need to figure out, that's fine, but they don't need to be kidnapped and disappeared and moved who knows where and separated from their families and separated from contributing to our community here as well. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Zachary Allen. I live off of Mulaney Drive, near the south side. I come here because I'm concerned for my fellow community members with what's going on with ICE and the Border Patrol. They're just kidnapping people off the street. I don't want to see my fellow community members taken, families destroyed, families being ruined, and communities being ruined. These are our friends, neighbors, and some people's family members. I fully believe that we should not, Billings Police should not be working with with ICE or Border Patrol. And the best of your ability, if you guys can try to keep ICE and not work with them as much as possible. Thank you.
Harris from West Side, and I totally second everything everybody else has said about ICE, who are talking just then. I'm praising the hardworking professionalism of Billings Police, and I'm glad Billings has not agreed to that Department of Health and Human Services 287G deal, cross-deputizing police to do ICE raids. Our police have more than enough on their plate right now. It would open up our city to lots of future lawsuits, as ICE does not follow police protocols and many have committed crimes. Federal officers enjoy immunity in civil suits. Local police may not have that same kind of immunity. I want to mention crimes committed by ICE. You probably have already heard them, and they're heartbreaking and hard for me to tell without wanting to cry. ICE agents act like predators rather than law enforcement. Law enforcement are supposed to be protectors of the public, and they have to abide by the Constitution and legal protocols. It's stunning to have law enforcement, or whatever they are, that don't have to abide by those things. And thank you for not agreeing to being part of that 287 deal, which would get our police mixed up with some very bad things. Thank you very much.
Hello, City Council members. My name is Nikki Hanto, and I am a Billings resident of Ward 3. I am here to express my concern with ICE activities throughout the country, particularly in the wake of the events in Minneapolis where Renee Good was shot by ICE. I have seen countless videos and firsthand accounts about how ICE has been engaging with individuals, and I'm horrified by the level of violence they are engaging in. I'm also thinking about and considering the safety of all of us here in Billings, should ICE be welcomed here. I value safety here in Billings, and after seeing how ICE engages within the community, I am certain they would make us significantly less safe. I reached out to this council a few weeks ago about these concerns and was so happy to hear back from not only my own council member, Amy Aguirre, but also Mark Nicholson, both sharing my concern. This response gives me a lot of hope that our representatives are in fact interested in hearing our voices and keeping Billings safe. I further would like to advocate against the Billings Police Department entering into a 287G agreement with DHS. I believe entering into such agreement would break any trust we have with BPD and would force our local police department to work against the interests of Billings residents. I can imagine this would create a laundry list of issues that would follow, including expensive civil suits. I'm hopeful this city council can stand with the people of Billings and oppose the unconscionable work ICE has been doing all across this country. I believe we can stand strong when doing work together, and I look forward to the rest of the council joining us. Thank you.
Hi. So I'm new to the community. I'm also a little late to the meeting. So I don't know, are we only addressing initiatives that were noted on that document? So it is off base, from what you guys are discussing, but I'm new. I'm from Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota. I've been here for 4 months, and I see a lot of folks that are hurting in the community, primarily a lot of the homeless folks. And I've helped them. I have my own nonprofit, but I've helped them primarily with housing emergencies. And what I've came to run into is a lot of programs are short funded. The nonprofits are short funded, and you're literally seeing folks sleeping on the street. There are some, other, community concerns or opportunities that I see, but primarily what I'd like to address today and get some feedback or some insight. What are we doing to not just decrease the homeless population that seems to be increasing, but completely stop homelessness in the city of Billings? Well, that's a question. Are we just doing statements? Okay. All right. Like I said, I'm a little bit new. Christina Stanley. So, and I'll be honest, so I come from Minnesota. I'm born and bred. I don't have friends or family out here, but something just kept pulling me to Billings. I lived in a really beautiful city in Minnesota, but something just kept nudging me to come out here. And I understand that there's a lot of folks that are hurting. I even had a meeting on Friday with a business owner in Billings, and they said it's one of the most depressed cities rated nationally. So I feel like this is really the place for me to be, but since I've been here, I had an opportunity to meet with businesses, to meet with nonprofits, and I actually put together the City of Billings Elevation Project, which I did submit to you 3 times. I didn't get any response, so it probably wasn't looked at. I'm sure you guys are very busy, but it is something I would like to place in front of you. Just various city initiatives, and it's just grassroots and different ideas for how we can grow this city and grow individuals. I think when you're growing a community, it's each individual that you grow as a whole. It's not just helping them with their with their residential situation. It's every part of them. So I'd like to be a part of that and possibly present that to you, or at least, email you the document. So if you guys had that contact information where it could be reviewed, that would be great. And if somebody could get back to me, I would love to partner with you guys to see what we could do. I found that there's a lot of nonprofits and even residents in different meetings that I've attended where people have a lot of input and they have a lot of information, for what they found in the city and different obstacles that they've encountered. So hopefully I can receive that from you by the end of the meeting. But thank you for your service and what you guys do.
Hey, I'm Megan Fitz. I sent all of you an email, and Andrew, thank you for sending me your copy and paste text back. Kendra, I knocked doors in the dog days of summer for you, and this skin does not go out without SPF 50, so you didn't send a response, but I'm sure that you will be. As you know, Amazon has an amazing... Oh, yeah. So, yeah, sorry. So I'm at 2324 Canyon Drive. As you know, Amazon has Ice Agent costumes as like the #1 seller. And if masked men with with armed weapons come at my door, I will be very scared. And I would hope that all of you would stand up for my constitutional rights. I don't expect that. I don't know. Like, would you? No, when the train put all the sulfur in the river whenever it was there any studies to say if our drinking water is safer or less safe now? I don't believe that it is, but I looked and looked and I couldn't find anything. And nobody else is going to do it. You guys need to. And we're expecting you to, and we're relying on you. We have nobody else. So if ICE agents come, or if people pretending to be ICE agents come and they spray tear gas all over the streets and everybody gets nerve damage, is there a plan in place that we can protect each other? I would please look at that and put a plan in place for that. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you guys. Thank you for serving the city Billings, which I love and live in. My name is Bob Struckman. I live at 2018 Mariposa Lane, right here in town. And I'm coming to speak to you guys about ICE and my request for the city of Billings not to cooperate with ICE. You know, we know what ICE is supposedly doing. Supposedly, it's addressing crime. That's not true. We also know that. And the reason I say it's not true is that immigrants per capita commit fewer crimes than people who are from the United States. That's a really, really important thing for you to wrap your minds around. And if you look skeptical, I mean, look it up. It's true. It's true. Not only that, but we already have laws on the books to address the crimes that are problems, right? We have laws against murder, theft, stuff like that. When we embrace a body that is pursuing people who are not necessarily criminals at the times that they're committing crimes or based on an actual crime that people have committed, then that means that by definition, we are not addressing the crimes that we say we're targeting. Does that make sense? It's a misdirection that is making our country and our communities less safe. I grew up here in Billings, so I know that there are a lot of families here in town that came here through the Bracero program 100 years ago and more. Those folks are an important part of Billings today. We took in Laotian refugees after the Vietnam War and Hmong people and other people from East Asia, and those people have enriched our community. We've taken in people from, not huge numbers, but, we're not a huge town, right? And so we've taken in people from all around the world. I think that's awesome. People bring their culture here. That's incredible. I went to grade school, middle school, and high school and known some of these folks all my life. I myself, come from people who came west from points east. We came, my Norwegian ancestors came here as refugees, essentially. And I'm really, really glad that they were able to come here. I'm grateful for the people who were here at that time for bringing us in. And so I want to be doing the same thing to people who need a place now, a place that's safe, a place where they can work, have a better life. And guess what? If they commit crimes, let's go after them. People who commit crimes should be held accountable for those crimes. But we should not be holding people accountable for just being themselves and looking for a place to go, to be safe, to raise families. That's basically it. Thanks. Oh yeah, I guess that comes back to my comment, which is to say, please make a decision as a body, not to stress out and stretch thin are already stressed out. I mean, I assume they're kind of stressed out because police, I think, get stressed out. It's a tough job. They're great. Chief St. John is fantastic. We want Billings Police to be able to do their job to support and keep the city of Billings safe without having them get other duties that they're not necessarily trained for.
I
Thanks.
don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but it's only fair that we keep everybody to 3 minutes.
Oh, no, I think that's more than fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment before we move on to the next agenda item?
Good evening. I just wanted to extend my congratulations to the new mayor and the new council members. My name is Neil Kiner. I'm a local landscape architect and a member of the Energy and Conservation Commission. So I look forward to our partner Glenn's presentation here in just a moment. Thank you. Also, wanted to commend the city on their vision statement. The Magic City, a diverse, welcoming community where people prosper and business succeeds. I like that.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jennifer Strong. I live in Ward 3. Thank you all for being here, for serving us. I was here a few weeks before the end of the year to speak to those who were here then. Welcome to those of you who just began. I am here to, first of all, I have had the pleasure of engaging with some of our refugees who are here in Billings. We do have Venezuelan refugees. We do have Iranian refugees. And I'm really happy that they're here. And I've gotten to help them learn English, and it's been a blessing. And I want them to be safe and feel welcome in our community. However, I also know for a very good fact that we have people here who are not here legally. And I do want my children to be safe. I do want our police to follow federal law. We are a nation of laws. It is upon us to follow those laws. And I would request that I don't want anybody to be hurt. I don't want anybody to be beaten up. I want peace. But if we have people here who should not be here legally, then they should go back to their home and make their home a better place. And we should be safe where we are. That is not a matter of hate. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. It has everything to do with the matter of following our laws. So thank you for that. Also, I think I'll save it for the end. Thanks.
Any further public comment?
Good evening. My name is Bailey Nickloff. I'm a taxpayer of Billings. I am in Miss Aguirre's ward. I'm here to discuss ICE. I'm here to say that if there is ever an agreement that comes before this council, to reject it, to not work with federal law enforcement. I'm an attorney, and while I'm not making any legal opinions here, I can tell you what I'm seeing in Minneapolis is a gross undermining of our laws, violations of our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, and probably that will continue to our Sixth Amendment rights. And so knowing that, and if our police officers get involved with that, we are looking at potentially large civil lawsuits. And I would also, in addition to the human aspect of what we are witnessing, and the dehumanization that we are witnessing, I would also implore this council to consider the financial costs that this could potentially cost the city of Billings if we were to come into a mutual agreement with federal agents. I would like our city to not be bankrupt, and I would like our county to not be bankrupt. And I think one way we can do that is by not entering into a 287 G agreement. So, thank you, and that's all. Thanks.
All right, any further public comment? Well, I'm going to close this portion of our meeting, and we're going to move on to item number 1 on tonight's agenda, the Energy and Conservation Commission final recommendations. Mr. City Administrator, you want to give us an intro?
Yes, so I'm going to turn it over rather quickly here to Lewis, who's been the staff, our staff working with the Energy and Conservation Board. As we had the packet material, as they've wrapped up their work with their recommendations tonight, they're looking for some feedback from you guys. So I'm going to turn it over to Lewis, and he'll do introductions and go from there.
Thanks, Chris. I'm, in addition to my duties as the Water Quality Superintendent for Public Works, I'm also the liaison for the Energy Commission, and I've had the privilege to work with Glenn here. This is Glenn Foy. He's been the commission chair since its inception, so I'm going to pass it over to him and let him talk about the plan that's been developed.
Thank you, Lewis, and thank you, new mayor. Congratulations, and all of the city council. I appreciate the opportunity to address the city council. I'm going to start singing just to make sure. Is this all right? Hello. Let's try this. That sound good? Okay, good. Nobody's ever accused me of being quiet, so this is the first time. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is, my name's Glenn Foy. I've been in renewable energy project development, financing of these types of energy efficiency projects for probably close to 20 years. And so, you know, when the
Mr. Foy, let's try another microphone, see if.
Is that better? Oh
Much.
my, oh my. Be careful what you ask for. So my name's Glenn Foy. I've been in energy efficiency and financing energy development projects for a long time. So when the call came to contribute to our community for the Energy and Conservation Commission, I kind of raised my hand. And so what I want to do is, that was back in 2019. So our commission expired at the end of December. And so what I'm going to do is give you a final report on that, as also provides, a number of you are new to the council, so I'm going to provide a little bit of background for all of you. So our agenda is I'm going to give a background to the commission, provide an executive summary, as well as provide the energy inventory, which is a comparative analysis between 2019, 2022, and 2024, which is actually quite compelling information. And then we're also going to talk about other conservation achievements within the city. And then finally, I'm going to wrap up with a high-level overview of the ECC recommendations for the city council to consider. So a little bit of background, the ECC charter it's really a 7-member commission that is voluntary, and it's composed of subject matter experts in the various areas of conservation. Each have been assigned to a subcommittee to focus on different areas of conservation, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. And we were formed in 2019. The actual charter itself was really the first is to do a complete resource inventory, which we did relative in 2019. And then based upon that, create a conservation framework for recommending to the city. And then finally, that framework provide recommendations to the city to consider ways to conserve energy, as well as to minimize pollution for both the city and residents. So let me provide an executive summary. So, I think what was a number of the members of the commission are very active in the community, are lifelong members of the community. We're quite surprised at the degree of conservation and sustainability within the city of Billings when we did our initial energy inventory. It took almost a year to do that. One of the things with conservation that we struggled with as a commission is, what does that mean? Does it just mean turn off the lights? What does it mean? Right? It's one of those amorphous concepts that, particularly for a recommendation to the city and its residents, you need to be able to put a definition around. And so that was something that we struggled. But what's really important is considering the environment the city operates into now, the conservation effort of the city has been very important to the operation and the fiscal results within the city. If you look just at the energy efficiency programs within the city, it's saved over $1.3 million a year. I mean, it's a big number. It really is a big number. The second is that through programs with the parks and the commission, the consumption of water, which is paid for by the city through the electricity and pumping the water to the parks, has reduced their utilization over 20%. Latest numbers come in, it's about 35% reduction without any public comments relative to the quality of turf. And that's a combination of conservation metrics as well as implementing certain types of methodology within the maintenance of the parks to reduce the overall water burden. That translates into between a $200,000 and $300,000 reduction in the operating expenses of the city because of these conservation metrics. And the last piece is that the city has a strong legacy of being able to monetize its waste streams into the landfill and to be able to successfully executing public-private partnerships with the MDU relationship. We think that that's something that should continue with the waste stream that's going into the landfill now. The next element is that, as many of you know, the city was awarded Leads for Cities Gold certification, which was an activity that was supported by the City Council and implemented by the ECC. What's important about Leads for City is that it's the first city in Montana to do that, which is fantastic. Our colleagues in Missoula and Bozeman were shocked. How could Billings be the first to do that? We were pretty proud to tell them that. But what's important about Leads for City is that it's a flexible framework that puts structure to conservation, and it also becomes a potential vision to share these concepts, which is shown to save money within the city as to conservation for the residents in the city. So it can be an important communication vehicle to the city. This conservation effort has really come to bear and provide value to the city based upon some of the financial vulnerabilities that occur within the city now. The city would be in trouble if it did not put in conservation technologies that are resulting in between $1 and $2 million of operating savings to the city now. And so I think the recommendation is that combined with a spike in the number of residents in the city and that has implications on the infrastructure moving forward. Conservation is something that's more critical to the city, particularly also in the context of the electrical rates that the city pays has increased 50% since 2019. So that's kind of the high level. From a recommendation perspective, we think that the city should lean into its conservation paradigm and that this needs to be better communicated to the community to potentially allow the community to take advantage of some of these cost efficiencies that have been seen by the city. The second element is that we think it's important that the city look at electrical self-sufficiency, look at self-generating, because 50% increase in electrical rates is something that the city does not have control in unless it takes that element into their own control. And I'm going to provide you some information on that to further that element. And finally, again, we think that the city should look at additional ways to monetize its municipal waste. It's not a cost, it's not a burden. It is an opportunity to generate revenue for the city. So the next slide is going to talk about the resource inventory. We're limited time here, so I'm just going to talk about the very high level elements of this. The first is that electricity is about 65% of the energy cost. And if you look at this particular side, it shows the actual cost here broken down by critical energy elements. So you've got electricity, you've got diesel, you've got water, you've got gasoline, you've got natural gas. The blue is the 2019, which is the baseline cost to the city. The orange is the 2024 cost. Now, what's important in terms of background for this is that the total energy cost in 2024 was $8.3 million. Okay, that's up about 6.8% from 2019, which roughly approximates the demographic growth within the city. Okay, now what's important to understand is that in that period of time, the unit price of electricity has gone up 50%. The reason why the electricity cost has only gone up 5% during that period is because of conservation efforts. Okay, so this is one of the elements in the Lead for City that success with that program is that Billings is a first model in the country to be able to demonstrate that it can reduce its operating cost by sustainability programs and reducing its environmental footprint. That's commendable. What's also important, as we talked about this a little bit earlier, if you look at the cost of water, again, you have a demographic increase, you have an increase in the cost of electricity, but you see that the cost of water to the city is roughly down almost $300,000. That's because of conservation. Okay? So the point here is that conservation is not an abstract concept. It is an implication to the city to reduce its operating expenses. The next slide is slight deviation from the inventory. This is data that comes out of Lazard, which is an investment bank out of New York, which is kind of the preeminent identifier of what they call levelized cost of electricity. Levelized cost of electricity is if you look at a generating source, what's the total cost for a unit of energy over its entire operating cost. So it's kind of an apples to apples comparison associated with that. What's very interesting is that this red star here is the landed price of electricity, what the city pays from Northwest Energy. A little over 15 cents a kilowatt or $150 a megawatt. Okay, that's gone up from $10 in 2019 in the base year. Now what you can see is that a number of these generating alternatives, okay, are to the left of the curve, which means that they're less expensive to be able to generate the electricity, particularly behind the meter. Okay, so this is something that is a key element that we're actually proposing is that the city look at generating its own electricity as a way to mitigate the cost from the utility. Back to the inventory. What this slide actually looks at is the number of gallons per capita comparing winter, which is blue, which is going to be kind of your baseline. This is what you need to operate your household. And then orange is what summertime use is. It's turning on the sprinklers, okay? And what's really important about this is you can look at this data is that the winter usage is slightly down about 5%, summer's down 8%, okay? But what's really important about this trend line, if you look at the orange up here, this is how the city sizes its infrastructure for water, is this peak, okay? So from a strategic perspective, the commission feels very strongly that if we can lower this peak, it has implications in terms of reducing the cost over time to the city and its infrastructure build, which is now an issue because of the increase in population. From a solid waste perspective, if you look at, the period from 2016 to 2019 to 2023, it's roughly flat, okay, which is good. You had a 6.5% demographic increase, and then the catchment area has grown even more than that. But what's important from the commission's perspective is that, we like a flat trend, okay, but we look at these 1,000 tons a day of trash into the landfill equals about 100,000, the energy content of 100,000 short tons of coal. How do you monetize that for the city? Okay? Because if we can monetize it, then it increases the strength, the financial strength, and the sustainability of the city. Other notable programs, we think, again, the landfill gas program is a win because it's a public-private partnership that leveraged the capital of the partner as well as their operating expertise. We think that that's something that can be brought to bear for monetizing the energy, the waste going to the landfill. Similarly, cardboard recycling, composting, very welcome. Question is, how do you make money from it for the city, right? There's companies out there that do that. So the idea is that, is there a strategy here within the city to be able to leverage that expertise and use that, those resources that are locally? Very interesting story in the commission's history is that there's a pump station out near Ironwood in that particular area that's reaching its capacity. Okay, so what did Lewis do? Sent out a message to those people out there that said, you know what, we need to conserve. We need to put you on a watering schedule. These, if you're odd, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And what happened? The utilization of water to that particular area went way down, extending the life of that pump station. Okay, that's a real life example that we, as the commission, can believe that these kind of programs can materially impact the cities moving forward. We also, which is kind of goes to our recommendation around wastewater, we love the Shiloh Conservation Area because it has multi-purpose. It's wastewater treatment, it's recreational, it's actually kind of nice to look at. And so, again, I think when we did the Leads for City certification, that was an innovation program that we were awarded credit for. Okay, and then finally the West End Water Project, we think that's a big win. You might as well put your water plant at the highest point in the city instead of the lowest point where it is now, so it costs less to pump the water to where it needs to be used. Okay, again, I think these are all important conservation wins, and we think it's important that the city continue with this. Just a moment, a comment about the framework, which is the Lead for City. And for several of you, we've presented several times to the City Council, and a lot of you are new. But what's interesting about the Lead for City is that it's not Lead for Building. Just, put that aside. It's different. Okay? What it does is it puts conservation into a structured format. And it's a whole community structure that's flexible because all cities are different. All cities need to have that flexibility associated, but it breaks conservation down into 7 elements into a city and applies metrics to it. So what's important, what the commission feels that is important about the Leads for City is that it provides the city a benchmark to see how it's doing, okay, other than just purely the financial metrics. So that's why we think that it's important moving forward that the city continue to move forward with the Leads for City. Now, we talked a little bit about gold for city. There was 21 cities in the country that had that distinction of over 300 cities that applied to be able to do Leads for City. So it's commendable that the city was able to achieve that. In terms of the process that the ECC underwent to be able to come up with its recommendations, there were literally hundreds, sitting through the public comment period, there's hundreds of ideas percolate within the community and within the commission to drive conservation within the community. What we did is we distilled it down over time, okay? Sought input from the department heads, as well as aligned the recommendations to the strategic goals of the city council. Okay? So basically through that process, that resulted in the 10 recommendations that have been provided to the council the first week of January. I'm going to go over that very, very quickly, okay? But many of the recommendations, I believe it's 7 out of the 10 recommendations, go to a financial reason. The reason to do this is to save the city money so that that money can be deferred to other priorities like, okay? So it's important, you know, several of the ways to do that is, you know, we believe, strongly support the LED street lighting, safety, lower cost, okay? In terms of sustaining upgrade, makes sense for some of the diversion programs to be able to divert waste, monetize the waste, so that you extend the period of time it's going to take for a landfill to have to be expanded. We also think it's important that parks in the city institutionalize a number of the water efficiency programs that have already been implemented. The latest number that we have from parks is that the use of water is down about 35%. That's a huge number that the city doesn't have to clean and pump. In addition to that, we think that getting to the point where we can pull that orange spike down from the use of water within the community is that we need to make the community more aware of some of the value that's in the portal, the water portal. And we think over time, a resident of the community provided their own study that showed that they were able to save about 20% of electricity, of water, by using a smart controller for their irrigation. Okay? Those are the kinds of things we think that should be able to be a support to the city for them to the residents to be able to recognize that they can save money through these conservation programs. We think in terms of the economic vibrancy, we think that there should be continued work on the sidewalks, as well as integrating walkable, bikeable public transportation. We just think that's important. And we also think one of our last recommendations, which we think is really important, is that many of the conservation programs are invisible to the residents in the community. If we're going to drive a culture where conservation can save the residents in the city money, we need to communicate that. So we think that it's important that there be a public awareness for the wins, as well as for education. And finally, I think that kind of the last piece is, we think that we've talked about it. Self-generation of electricity puts the control in the hands of the city, as well as how do you monetize that 1,000 tons a day of waste that's going into the landfill. So next steps, we've provided these recommendations in written format to the council. So we'd like for you to consider that. Maybe work with the department heads, make a decision. There's options there in terms of the directions that different ways that the city council for each of the recommendations. It's in the format of council memos, so you're familiar with the structure of it. And in addition to that, again, our commission expired at the end of December. We think that conservation is important as a commission from both an environmental and a financial perspective. We think that the effort should continue. We think that the ECC is a vehicle to be able to support that effort for the city. And we also think that a lead for city framework is something that the city should continue to move forward because it provides structure to a conservation type of effort. So thank you very much. I apologize it went longer than I probably should have, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Amazing work. Great report. I love the $5 million. Can you get us another 5 next year?
Oh, I left my checkbook at home.
All right, council, I guess we're going to talk this through. City council is being asked to consider and provide feedback to the Energy Conservation Commission on each of the 10 recommendations that you guys have in your packet. They're also seeking input on whether the city council would like to extend the ECC past its current expiration date, which was about 3 weeks ago, December 31st, 2025. So I'd throw it out there first. How do you want to tackle this? Councilperson Shaw?
Thank you. I guess I would, just for the structure of the discussion, say I think we're going to be here all night if we go through all 10 of these one by
Agreed.
one. But I think they're all worthy of discussion, but we're going to need the various department heads, I think, to be here to really get into the meat of it. So my comments are just going to be general, which is I think you guys have done incredible work. I'm so proud of the LEED Gold certification. In my opinion, I think we should move toward the next level. And I like this as a structure and a framework. I'm just one of 11, but I can tell you, you have my support to continue. And I really hope we can find a way to make that happen because of all the committees we've seen, I think this is one that has brought us a very concrete project that has had real results for the city. And it's saving the city money, which is such a big deal. And so, yeah, I applaud you for putting all this information together. And I think I'm hopeful that all of these 10, as we continue to talk about them, will serve that goal because I think hopefully saving the city money is something we can all get behind, whatever the vehicle is for it.
Mr. Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. The idea of generating our own electricity sounds great, but is that where you just stop? Or do you just say it's your problem now? Or do you bring us an answer? Say, this is how you generate the electricity. This is what the cost is in order. Does it cost $2 to save $1? Do we save $2 to make $2? Where do you end up with the program? Just saying it's a good idea doesn't do me any good. I need answers to the question.
Councilmember Boyette, in those recommendations, and one of the things that I insisted on is I wanted that exact thing that you're bringing up. I wanted concrete answers, and so there's some specific recommendations about doing, Glenn referenced solar projects at high generation facilities. So that would be like the existing water treatment plant uses well over $1 million every year in electricity, or the new water treatment plant. It is not an idea to try and put it everywhere or where it doesn't make sense. You hear utilities talk about co-locating facilities, and that those recommendations are in there. And I understand we've just thrown this at you. There's a lot that went into this. One of the other recommendations that you'll find in there is something to consider when backfeeding from the new plant back to the rest of Billings through a hydroelectric generator. So there's other recommendations in there as you get into them, but they are very specific. We're not going to have all of the details like an engineering report or a feasibility study, but there are specific recommendations for those and where to put them.
Be a follow-up. So have you dealt with all the departments, or have they seen this, or will they see it in the future?
Yeah, Councilmember Boyette, yes, they have seen this. That was another thing that we insisted on, Glenn and myself, of we didn't want this to not be useful, right? The last thing we want is to waste your time. So that's why it was distilled down to 10. And Glenn wasn't kidding when there were hundreds of ideas. But we felt that what's the most valuable to departments is to get them involved, hear their perspectives on it, where they actually could see some, potential savings, and then distill that along with the city goals into the plan. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. The last thing I wanted to bring before you, or this commission wanted to bring before you, is something that wouldn't be implementable.
Councilperson O'Donnell.
Nothing is lighting up. Oh, right here. Okay, I was looking down at the base. So in reading over all of the information, I have to say I was quite impressed with the work that the commission has done and contributions to the city. What I find missing on here for my consideration is a cost-benefit analysis You refer to, at one point, the watering systems for the parks. You said it would cost like 200,000 to 300,000 to install a system per park, and said it would take, what, 5 to 9 years to recapture that. So the city, as you know, like every household, is financially constrained. So certainly, you've made a good point that it would save the city money in the future. However, with the cost constraints, the budget constraints that the city has right now, I'd like to know more of a cost-benefit analysis in terms of that. It also seems to me that, as I recall, and I could be wrong, but I don't think so, when I was on the Public Service Commission, that the utility, Northwestern Energy, rate bases the conversion of streetlights to LEDs. So if they are paying for that, why are we paying for that also? Is it because there is some lights are owned by Northwestern, some of the city? You're shaking your head.
Exactly.
People on Community 7 can't hear that.
Yeah,
You know,
no, LED streetlights is a creature all to itself in terms of ownership and the districts and so on and so forth. So it's not a straight conversion like that, but you're exactly right. I mean, there's some that are owned by Northwest Energy, which most of those, if not all of them, have been converted. It's the city lights that, that's the opportunity moving forward.
I'd just add one point to that. You just see the rates are going up, right? And one of the difficulties with LEDs is the conversion of streetlights and the laws around streetlight districts. And so if you look closely in that particular recommendation, it talks about, that specific issue needs to be figured out before that could be implemented. So the recommendations aren't exhaustive, I'll say it that way, where they're not going to get into every detail, but they give recommendations or next steps as to how we could walk down that path. We may find that there's a current state law that is cost prohibitive essentially for that recommendation, and we actually talk about that in the recommendation. That at that point we may say, well, that doesn't make sense at this time, or we need to change, push to change the state law. But there is substantial cost savings, in particular for street lighting, if we were to pursue that LED conversion. So it isn't, some of these aren't easy and they're not exhaustive, I guess is what I wanted to add.
Yeah, and also I'm keeping in mind that as Paul has talked about in the South Side, we saw that there is of the street lights that are existing, that a very great percentage of them are not working at all, and I wonder about that. So at any rate, these are questions that I have for another time, but I would be really interested in cost-benefit analysis so that it could give direction to the council when it comes to budgetary allocations in terms of what is most important in terms of best way to allocate money. Thank you.
Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Louis, a lot of these things that I'm looking through the recommendations are really, really good, and I see the city's done. I think one of your opening comment was how you were surprised to see how well the city was already doing as far as being efficient and looking at ways to save and monetize things around the city. And so as I looked through all these different recommendations and I read through as much as that longer report as I could, it appears to me that the city has already been doing it. I've been on the council 7 years, and I've seen a lot of these things long before the commission would report that the city was working towards that, like the streetlight program. They're already working towards converting everything to LEDs, and they're doing what they can within the budget they've got, and they've done a terrific job. And so I don't see, in light of additional funding coming out, falling from the sky, I'm not so sure the city can move any faster with what they've already done. And I suspect the city would continue to move that way. As I look through these, can you point out any of these recommendations that the city hasn't already been doing? I guess that's the trying to figure out is what in here is the city not already doing and have been trying to do and would do more if the funds were there?
A couple, Councilmember Neese, a couple recommendations come to mind are, one of which would be the total cost of ownership around vehicle purchases.
I can stop you right there for a minute.
Okay.
I just toured the Met facility, and they're already doing that. That's their whole operation when they look at their buses, the electric costs versus the diesel pushers, and the entire. That's how they're doing their vehicles. And so, so I know Met's doing it. So maybe that's something that we take from Met and then move throughout the other departments. So, do we know for sure that other departments are doing that?
Councilmember Neese, I do know that our equipment replacement plan doesn't specifically call out life cycle costs for every vehicle. That's something that was a recommendation from the city. Yes, there are pockets of the city. I agree with you that are looking at that, and that's just good business, right? Looking at all the costs in the long term.
Right.
So potentially having something more formalized through that equipment replacement plan would be the vehicle that the recommendation has. So it is happening. You're right. I don't disagree with that. And like Glenn said, that, you know, that predates this commission. I think one of the things that an additional recommendation that is important for the commission is understanding that we want to communicate this. Like, we can be proud of the city that has been built here, and that's, you know, proven by a third party.
I do agree with you that we don't tout or blow our horn enough, because we do a very good job of being efficient and finding ways to lower the cost for our citizens. And I think that's true. I think that would be helpful. But again, I'm struggling here just seeing this stuff. It's good to be pointed out. It makes it public to let everyone know we're doing it. And maybe you're right. Maybe department wide now it's opening their eyes that they can tag on to some of these things. And then, in Councilmember Boyd asked you a question if the other departments were aware of this. I guess I want to go that further. Are they not only aware of that, but say, yes, we can implement these? Is this something that they've actually done? Because I'm not so sure. I don't see their input into it. And so I sure would like to see some of their input into it. Has the department heads actually looked at all these and said, yeah, we can do this, we can put this in the 2027 plan and stuff like that?
I wouldn't say that, because not all the recommendations are completely vetted. I mean, the nice thing about the commission is it's volunteer, but also that can be a detriment, right? So it's hard to get very, very thorough analyses or feasibility studies on specific recommendations, but we have gotten that input. There's never been, anything before you has never been, hey, hold up, from a department head saying, do not do this. Some of the recommendations are going to require that the department head do some more looking into this and assessing, you know, cost benefit analysis or feasibility, because we could give high level recommendations as, you know, 7 volunteers, and honestly it was a big task, right? You're asking 7 volunteers to provide a complete plan for the city. So yes, there are some specific recommendations that they would completely endorse, but there's also some things in there that they will need to look into more before it could be implemented.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Lindley.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. This was fantastic. A couple of thoughts that I had. First of all, I think you bring up a good point about what are these being done already? I know from boards I've sat on and for the group that put this recommendation together, it is a lot of work from people that aren't getting paid anything to do it. So I appreciate the time and effort that was put in. It's a very thorough plan with recommendations. I think there's a lot of value in that, in being able to have experts in the community be engaged and provide those, whether we do anything with them or not. I'm sure we can't do all of them, especially the ones that might have a large capital up front. But I also just wanted to say, from the electricity production standpoint, I think that can probably seem like a huge elephant to swallow, but I think we should at least be open to think about it, because higher electricity costs are coming. That is for sure. We're already seeing them. I'm in technology. So, I personally, I use AI every day. I know that there's a lot of debate about all of that, but it's not going to stop. And data centers, whether they go in here or somewhere else, electricity costs are going to keep going up. So I think anything we can do to at least look at the potential for protecting ourselves long term and being a little bit more proactive is certainly good to take a look at.
Anybody else before I go back for a second time around? Councilmember Piven?
Yep. So I went and looked at the original resolution, and it's very rare that a government starts something and actually you were given 4 years to come up with this, present these recommendations, and I think you've achieved your goal. I think as you go through these, what the original motion was and the resolution, you've accomplished that. You've given the city a vision to go forward for the next decade. You've got so many projects, and I think the recommendations to our staff are phenomenal, and to the entire city, as far as not only inspiring us as a city organization, but businesses throughout our community. And so I think you've done one of the most amazing things in government. You were given an assignment, and within 4 years you came back with the end product, and I think it's phenomenal for you to do that. I guess the thing is it's expired now. So where do we go from here? Has this resolution accomplished what it has set out to do, or do we have to come back with a new resolution that has another set of goals? I'm not sure what the next step would be if you were still in.
I'll go ahead and answer that, and then you can maybe give the commission perspective. I'll just give it from a staff perspective, okay? We have completed the resolution, and that was one of the things we kept coming back to, is this is what city council has given us, and we have to do these things. We've accomplished those things. And, then the question is, well, what now? And we've had a lot of debate amongst the commission, and we've had some discussion internally as to from a staff perspective, what's the next best thing? And to me, as a staff member, it comes down to execution, right? We've given recommendations. My perspective is that we would now give that to the department directors, let them come to you, and say, okay, yes, we looked into this and it is feasible or it's not feasible. That's how I would see it. I think if the commission were to continue, I think it has to be a very different resolution than how it's currently written. Most commissions, or boards, are advisory, right? And again, I really commend what they've been able to accomplish with volunteers is very commendable. Could it be something advisory? It could. And I do want to acknowledge as well the number of emails that we received, like to extend the commission. I don't want to have that fall on deaf ears, but from a staff perspective, I think at this point, it's time that the directors and the people who are, the nuts and bolts and inner workings of the city take that information and then implement it. Again, there's also the Lead for Cities discussion that Glenn mentioned. What do you want to do with the Lead for Cities discussion? That could be maybe a future resolution. But as far as this resolution and as far as this commission's concerned, my perspective is that it would not continue in this form.
Hold on, we're going to get through everybody first. So, Dr. Nicholson.
So you're a department head, and I'm just wondering if a citizen board would help you as a department head work towards these goals. I know people are busy. You're just trying to keep doing what you're doing. Got to keep the water running. And sometimes it's hard to see where you need to go. Do you think department heads would benefit from a citizen board to help with that?
Council member, my perspective on that is, if you look at our recommendations, a lot of them are either related to public works or parks. And so I guess my perspective would be that the value could still be demonstrated from an energy standpoint at those boards. I know none of us probably want more government, right? But sometimes having one specific location to continue to bring those points. Again, I bring up the Public Works Board, and my job at the city, I get to run the biggest energy hogs in the entire city. So I'm always looking at this. But I think that could be a vehicle for that, or the Parks Board to be able to say, hey, how are you doing at these energy and conservation initiatives? Could there be another board? It is helpful, I think, to hear an outside perspective. I don't know what that is yet, and I think that the council would need to give some direction on what is the next phase of this. But from an execution standpoint, I'd like to see the plan be taken to the directors and move forward.
Councilperson Aguirre?
Thank you. Just a few thoughts. If you could just put my mind at rest. On page 4 of your report, it talks about using non-potable water at some of the parks, like Spring Creek, for example. Can you just put my mind to rest that that's not going to be harmful for the wildlife that occupy the parks?
Yeah, Councilmember Aguirre, I definitely, if you look at that specific recommendation, that's one of those that talks about, hey, we need some more feasibility study here. If that's going to make Spring Creek run dry, which I don't think it would, then that wouldn't be, we're conflicting goals here. So we would never put the citizens in a place where either the water quality on that park is not acceptable, or we're having some other wildlife harm for that park.
Yeah, thank you. Because I know kids play in the water too, and it's just general environmental concerns. Thank you. One other thing is, do you intend to use that LEED Gold stamp on literature for the city of Billings? I would highly recommend putting that in there so that anyone looking to relocate to Billings would be able to see that and appreciate those efforts. So something to consider. And then, as far as the commission continuing in a different format or under the same people, I mean, first of all, I don't think the work is a one and done. I think the work that has been done is incredible and amazing, and there's always more that can be done. So I hope it's not a one and done. But to that end, do current commission or commission members have an interest themselves in continuing that kind of work?
Yeah, I think I appreciate your comments. We haven't, I think what the commission was looking forward was for some guidance, from the city council. And so we haven't formally approached any of the members to, as to interest of participating moving forward, because you need to know what you're signing up for, right? So I think that there's kind of a wait and see with that. That being said, a number of the commission members are very, very committed to this whole effort, and certainly committed to the community. So I think once there's definition as to what they're signing up for, then I think that's a period of time when I was going to go back to them to understand their participation moving forward.
Tim Espenlater?
Mr. Mayor, I guess this is a question for you. Where are we going with this? Are you going to look for a motion and direct? I mean, we don't make motions in a work session. Are you going to look for direction? Are we going to carry this forward? Is this going to go on a regular business agenda? Like, what's the next step?
Well, I think, I have a comment or two, and I'd like to make that, and then I think I'll make a recommendation, if that's okay with everybody. We need to get consensus, and then we can instruct the city how we're going to move forward.
Mayor, I'd recommend public comment before we take any direction.
That's true. So, thank you, because, I forget these things once in a while. So, Dr. Foy, first off, the $4 million in savings, or the $4 million MDU gas operations, that's real money to the city, or is that?
Yeah, that's from the royalties that have been kicked off from the MDU.
And what period of time is that?
Approximately, I'm going to say 10, 15 years, but that predates me, so I could be wrong.
Okay. So what would it take to get it to 8 or 12 $million? Another 30 years? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, one of the things, again, to the several of the comments about specificity relative to the recommendations is that monetizing the waste stream is one of those that's kind of more of a big picture. It's more of a concept and it's more of a commitment to, driving revenue to the city out of that. That being said, you're exactly to that point, right? Is that how do you maximize the public-private partnership with MDU to be able to increase the royalty stream to the city? And one of those is, again, the concept of monetizing the waste stream is that there's certain strategies that the landfill can use to maximize the generation of suitable gas to be able to monetize through that partnership. So that would be a specific example of how the city would move forward with monetizing that. So that's what it is that the MDU plant, and this is a dimensional comment, but it's only running at 30% of capacity, right? And part of the reason is because there's a narrow bandwidth of landfill gas that can be utilized for that particular process. How do you expand that amount of gas to be able to drive the utilization of that plant to a much higher level and therefore increase the royalty that the city would realize?
And lastly, technological advances and improvements. How quickly are ideas like this changing and becoming more efficient at saving us more money?
I think one of the things, there's a tremendous amount of investment going into waste stream diversion, right? I mean, because the comment that I made earlier on that there were 21 cities that were leads. Every single city that we talked to as a commission had huge solid waste issues across the country. It didn't matter. Okay, so it's a huge issue across the country, and so you look at, and again, I think you mentioned your technology, but there's I read an article just the other day about implementing AI into sorting systems to be able to make material resource sorting systems more cost effective, right? So it's just like a lot of different areas, and again, it's just like in 2000s, everybody was crazy about the internet, right? Now everybody's crazy about AI. But the point is that the application of that into manual sorting and identification of value-producing diversion elements is occurring, right? Because this is such a huge problem across the country and across the world.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
I just had one comment. When you're asking how you can generate more money at the landfill, you have to go back to the original thing we were facing is EPA was going to fine the city millions of dollars for methane seeping out of the landfill. So we were able to take a negative and take, instead of it being an expense that we were just mitigating, into a public-private partnership that has unlimited revenue. It had us start looking at the landfill in totally different ways. We started lining the landfills so we could capture more of the methane and things like that. So there's ways, I think our staff every day are finding ways to get the landfill to produce more methane and more revenue.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other requests for comment, I'm going to open this part of the hearing up to public comment on this item. Remember, you have 3 minutes to speak your mind on this particular topic. Please step forward.
Hello, my name's Chris Glenn. I am a Billings native and also chair of the Yellowstone Valley Citizens Council. If you don't know it, it has been around since 1979, and our mission is to make Yellowstone County more healthy, inviting, and sustainable. And I just want to say sustainable is a broad remit. So thank you for letting me speak. Billings has already invested significant time and money in activities that have earned us this LEED Gold certification. it's a nationally recognized validation that our city is saving money, managing energy wisely, and running complex systems well. Letting the ECC sunset now, I think, would put that investment at risk and leave real opportunity on the table. So it's important to be clear, though. I want to be clear about where the credit belongs. Many, if not most, of the innovative practices that earn Billings this certification were implemented by our city departments. As you've heard, the ECC didn't invent them. But what they did, and did very well, was find them, document them, and assemble them into a coherent, third-party verified story that got us that certification. Without that work, much of what the departments did would just be invisible outside City Hall. And I think it's invisible to most residents. And you need to holler more about this. This was good work. The external validation really matters in that employers, site selectors, skilled workers use signals like Lead for City to judge whether a city is well-run, fiscally responsible, and prepared for growth. So that gives us an external certification. And I really want to give a shout out to Lewis because it was a really effective commission because of his credibility, technical knowledge, and relationships across departments. And so he made the difference, I think, from it being a paper committee and a really productive one. So it is really important to recognize that in thinking about continuing the ECC. So I would recommend a very narrow scope, two-pronged. First off, leverage that ECC Gold certification to market Billings, let everybody know about it. And just, I think you have to maintain that. It's not a, you get it and then you have it forever. You have to maintain it. And then second, use the lead structure as a way to look for potential ideas. And I'm a retired system engineer and a former department head. And I know the biggest savings in complex organizations is where you get out of your silos and you look across the board. And so you need that. And the ECC could provide that, looking across the board. When you're trying to keep the water running, keep the lights on, it's really hard to get distracted or focused on that, and you don't have time to look at the real savings you can make. So that external group can really help. Thank you for listening, and I do hope you can continue it in some way.
My name is Adela Honor. I live at 1109 Delphinium. Mr. Mayor, council members, first of all, I would like to thank the commission for all their work over these 4 years. I think that they've done a terrific job, and I, as a citizen, very much appreciate their work, volunteers and city staff. And Mr. Foy's report speaks for itself. As a citizen, I also appreciate the dollar savings from the work of the commission. And anytime we don't spend money on energy, it means that there's more taxpayer money available for city services that citizens want and that we can see and that we deem important. Money spent on energy just is a drain. When we spend twice as much, we don't get twice as much. In fact, it's just the opposite. We lose. So I think that we have gained so much from the work of this commission. The other thing, as I look at this, is I feel very proud of the work that the commission has done. And I think if I were an outsider, maybe looking at moving to Billings, I've been here over 35 years, but I would see a city that's innovative and forward-looking, has dedicated volunteers who commit to improvements and end up with great accomplishments. And the beneficiaries are citizens and our businesses. Our community benefits from this. The other thing that is a result of this work is that our leaders are shown to be very respectful of citizen tax dollars and that we work hard for those to be able to contribute those tax dollars to the city, and the leadership when the city looks for ways to save money and operate more efficiently. That is just another benefit of this. So I also ask the council members to please extend this commission, or as a board, or one way or another. Billings is growing and the needs are not going to stop. And I ask you to keep this commission going so that the wonderful work that has benefited the citizens can continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to comment again on this issue?
On this issue.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. My name's Sarkar Colvin again. I just want to comment on this. I am not familiar with this before tonight, but I think it's awesome to hear the LEED certification for Billings. That's something I didn't know about, and it's really great to hear. In my professional capacity, I work with water, wastewater, stormwater, green infrastructure for cities and municipalities, mostly small ones, a lot smaller than Billings. And I think it's amazing to have a commission like this that's all volunteers. I think all the communities I work with, I think it would be amazing, and they would kill to have something like that. So I think keeping them, and in whatever capacity that may be as a board or commission, I think is really important and is a great resource for the city and a great use of our resources, because paying people to do something like this would be very expensive. My other thought too is thinking about cost benefit analysis and thinking about some of these projects, whether it's like water, wastewater, or energy, is that there's all kinds of different funding options for all of these. It's not necessarily something the city has to pay now and then or get just a regular loan. There's all kinds of funds that will pay for things. Even coming up at the end of this month, there's the Water Resources Development Act through the Army Corps of Engineers that could pay for some water, wastewater projects. So just utilizing some of these government funds that's already there could be really helpful. Or even like water smart grants for replacing sprinkler heads in the parks. And I'm sure that the utility departments are looking at these things, but it's great to have this independent commission to look at some of these as well. So I think it's important to have a commission like this and adaptable to look at some of these other financing options for both the infrastructure, extending the infrastructure lifespan, and decreasing the cost and efficiency. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jack Hansen. I was born and raised here in Billings. I currently live in Ward 4. I'm also a member of Yellowstone Valley Citizens Council. I'm here as a resident and a city taxpayer to encourage the council to continue the work of the Energy and Conservation Commission. The work of the commission positions Billings as a leader among cities with respect to sustainability, transparency, and fiscal responsibility. As someone who manages a budget, I know full well the benefits of spending money on near-term infrastructure investment in order to save money on operations forever. It's called planning and having some foresight. I also know the benefits of having someone around whose job it is to coordinate across silos and keep the focus on those efforts. So one valuable function of the commission, I think, as we've heard, and reason enough to continue its work, is that it coordinates among various city departments and staff. It allows for cross-pollination of ideas. Oops, sorry. Bear with me a second. It's the problem with prepared comments. You lose them, gone. So it allows for cross-pollination of ideas. It ensures that some group in city government remains focused on identifying areas for waste reduction and cost savings. In fact, the commission has identified multiple opportunities for real cost savings going forward, and we've heard about some of those tonight. I won't revisit them. I think all of them are sufficient enough to merit the continued work of the commission. The point here is that without the commission or some successor body doing similar work, there will be no one in city government focused on identifying these opportunities and pushing them forward. At best, this work will take place piecemeal, and at worst, it won't take place at all. For these reasons, I urge the council to keep the work of the Energy and Conservation Commission going in some form or other. Whether that's a renewed commission with a new charter and a new remit, or an advisory council, or some other entity. Please do that. Thank you.
All right, any further public comment on this issue?
Hello, my name is Karen Steers. I'm a resident of Billings, and I've had great privilege of being on this Energy Conservation Commission for the last 6 years, working with Glenn, Lewis, Neil, Randy, and Tim. It's been a real privilege. It's been a real eye-opener for me. Learned so much about the city and all the good work that the departments have done over the years, which culminated in us being able to describe that and culminated in a LEED certification of gold, which we should be very proud of, which I hope we can scream from the mountaintops as we move forward. We've had this certification for a bit now, so we have work to be done there because it is a great benefit to the city. I think that the good work of this volunteer board, Lewis clearly works for the city, but I believe that a lot of his time was volunteer work. He's paid by the city, but I don't believe that this was part of his on his job description. But he is definitely the reason that we've been able to have so much success. All the commission members brought with them their own area of expertise, but Lewis, in his highly intelligent, organized way of communicating with us and with the rest of the departments, brought this all together. I think it would be a real shame to not continue this group, this form, in this commission in some way. It might have a different name or a different mandate, but the energy that is behind this and all the good work that has gone into it does require continued effort and support. There's plenty of work to be done in the future. Technology is changing as we speak. So there are always new things that we could contribute to this city, this fine city. We're all volunteer. Hopefully it was good value for you as you read through these recommendations. But I want to thank you for having the foresight to pull this commission together and letting us do this work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Randy Hafer, Ward 1 and Energy and Conservation Commission member. So I will say that, first of all, just to start, I was very excited when this was created. And I can tell you that when we began and we started talking to department heads, we learned some interesting things. First of all, you may or may not remember that there was an Energy Commission in 2010. That commission came up with a series of recommendations. There was no continuity after that. It turned out, interestingly enough, that quite a few, maybe most of the recommendations that had originally been made from that commission were actually implemented. But nobody knew about it. Departments didn't know about what other departments were doing. All of us that came to this commission had, as Glenn said, we all have subject matter expertise in some area or another related to the mandate of this commission. And we were shocked because we also think that we know everything about the community, that what was going on. We were stunned. I mean, it was amazing. So that's all great, but it doesn't help to not have that communication going on internally, and it also doesn't help to have that communication not going out to the community. I think, as you know, we all agreed what was presented, we all agreed to. The one thing that we didn't specifically agree to is how it should be continued. I think we all agree that it should be continued. And I really think we could, this is my opinion, but I think that what we need is a champion of energy and conservation. It could be a board, but it's really it's an independent citizen volunteer group that meets once a month. Maybe it's attached to Public Works, but who's kind of just looking at all of these things, meeting with department heads periodically, making sure that everybody understands what everybody else is doing, that they understand what the recommendations are, and is also looking out for LEED, because part of it isn't that that's a separate activity. It's how do we take the things that we're doing that can advance us as they do. Although the one thing I would say is I'd like to add the quality of life portion, which was not part of our mandate. that has to do with public safety, housing, schools, those kinds of things. We would actually have scored quite a few more points if we'd been able to have somebody on the commission whose responsibility it was to be tracking that. And in fact, there was Jennifer Owen that was kind of the expert in that area. And so we picked up a few points just by chance, but that really then gives us a very holistic look at the community. And then we absolutely need to stamp the lead for gold on everything that we do and everything that we put out in the public. It's ridiculous that we don't do that. Other communities in Montana, as Glenn said, just couldn't believe that Billings got this. I mean, they were stunned. But we were amazed too because it was being done in such a silent, stealth manner, and there's no reason to do that. We're saving money. We're doing good, positive things. It also can help inform the what did you call it? The whatever plan. Something at space about your capital improvement plan, because then these things can be all work together. I've run out of time, but I think it's very important.
Thank you. Any other public comment regarding this? All right, that portion of this issue is closed. I guess, council, now we have to decide two things. What do we do with the 10 recommendations first? That's number one on our list. I guess for purposes of boiling it down, from what I heard was we would like these sent to department heads for comment and perhaps implementation, or at least costing out of implementation. Can we do that? Everybody okay with that? All right. Second, extension of the ECC past the expiration date of December 31st. I heard a lot of different ideas as to what to do with the ECC. I think the first things, in my opinion, their work's not done. I'm sorry, Councilmember Pittman. I know they've done what we told them to do, or the last council told them to do, but I don't think this is ever going to stop. And I think some form of this needs to go forward. And I kind of got an idea. There might be consensus that some form of this needs to go forward. Everybody want to nod their heads if they agree? Yeah, it looks like most. So, okay, we have enough to at least take it. What would be the next step, Mr. K?
I think when the commission was approved, there was a specific timeline. So I would say the clear action would be to us to bring back to you what you would want to extend that to, and if you want to clarify any scope of what you want them to do in that next step. But very specifically, there was an expiration that was set in it deliberately, and so if it's your choice to extend that, we'll bring it to you to extend that.
Sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I was here. I think you were here at the time. Mike Wright was here at the time. It was pretty clear the council definitely indicated that there was an expiration date. So this, talking about extending it is really not the right way to do it. If you want to renew it, maybe a thing to do. And so it would have to go through the same initiative process it was originally when Penny Ronnie brought it before the council to be discussed and then and honed down to how that resolution should be crafted for the next step if that was to happen. At least in my opinion, that would need to be taken. So this resolution, in my opinion, I think is dead. We're not extending anything. I think from here on, if one member of the council wants to bring an initiative forward, then we as a council should entertain that initiative.
Councilmember Shaw.
It's probably no shock. I'm so tired of initiatives. I don't think that that's, in my opinion, the right process. I think we have enough information now to say, do we, whatever we call it, renewed, extended, it's going to amount to the same thing of it's still going to need a new charter. It's still going to need a new scope of work, whatever it is we do. I don't think it's up to one of us to bring it forward. I think as a body right now, we can just raise our hands and take a straw poll. Who supports having staff come back to us with a proposal and who doesn't?
All right, thank you. Mr. Boyette.
What I've been thinking about is maybe the staff should have time to regurgitate this, look at it for 6 months to a year, or 6 months, 3 months, but then you guys come back and say, I would like a new resolution with this parameter because we've already built the bridge. The bridge is done. Now what are we going to do? Let's see if the people can walk across the bridge and do stuff before we go anywhere else. What new would you bring back tomorrow that you already haven't brought to us? If you haven't brought it to us now, then you didn't do your job to start with. So you've already done your job. Where next do we should go? I think we need time to think about this, the departments anyway. And then you come back and say, well, you know, that was a great idea. This one is going to work. Maybe this one isn't, but we need a better scope at this point. You need to narrow it down. But us reproving this, I don't know what I'm approving. Other than that, you're going to come back. Well, I don't know what you're going to come back. I'd like to see it before I approve it. I think it's a great idea. Don't get me wrong, but you've done your job. Let's have the staff do their job next and then move to the next step.
Mr. Nicholson, Councilmember Nicholson.
So basically what we have here is kind of a plan. And the goal is we want to save energy, but more specifically save money, save resources, and therefore save money. I think it's interesting that we got the gold status just with departments kind of looking around and doing the right thing to save resources. I know a little bit about behavior, being a psychiatrist. I know if you want to lose weight, you need to have a plan. So you have a bunch of, anybody want to lose weight, by the way? Yeah, anyway, you have to have a plan, which is a series of behaviors. But then crucial to accomplishing that, you have to monitor your adherence to the plan. And I think moving forward, having maybe not a commission, but a citizens advisory board work at helping to monitor progress towards these goals. I think that's what I would like to see.
Sure.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to bring back a new resolution for council that would, I'm probably not going to use the right language, but that would set out a new set of goals for this committee for the next time period. And I'm fine with it being a citizen advisory board. So I would just put it in that category. I think we need to just take a vote on this and see where we're at.
Second.
All right, all in favor of the motion, which is, well, I don't know if we want to take a vote on a motion in this.
The motion to direct staff to return to council with a resolution that would outline the goals and scope of how this committee could continue its work going forward.
All right, any conversation regarding that? We have a second?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to ask our parliamentary Gina, is that appropriate for the council to direct staff to create a resolution for this topic at this time, or is this outside of the parameters of what, since the commission's expired?
Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, yes, I think that this is an appropriate time and place to provide staff direction to bring back another resolution for council to consider final action on at a later date.
Thank you.
Any further conversation? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I think that's,
Go ahead and
it
vote.
passes. Yeah. All right. So we're good. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I'd ask for clarification. I'd like a hand vote on that, please.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. 6-4. Okay, so the motion passes. All right, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to the Energy and Conservation Commission. Great report. Obviously, you guys put tons of elbow grease and a lot of work into this, and I, for one, am greatly appreciative to you for doing that. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to the Corridor Study and Access Management Plan. Chris, who do we have here tonight?
Yes, so Mayor, just a couple hours before the end of business day today, we got notification that the little shift in gears as to who who was going to be in attendance tonight. But staff stepped up and said, working with our consultants, we can figure this out, whether we're missing MDT or not. So with, oh, Curtis is online. Okay, I'll actually, before I misstate anything more other than that shift late this afternoon, I'm going to hand it over to Wyeth and he can communicate which direction we're going to take, consistent with the packet in your materials. So.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. And I'm just kind of filling in here. Was on the technical advisory or technical oversight committee for this project as one of the city representatives, but I can tell you we had other departments involved from the city, including airport and our public works engineering side, and then also county representation. So there was a variety of folks, and the presenters here may give you some more detail on it. But so yeah, we have here in the room, we have Sarah Patterson, who's going to give the presentation, and then Lisa Olmstead, both from Dowell, who are the consultants for the Montana Department of Transportation for this project that MDT took forward. This is actually, the city had done a corridor study quite a few years ago of Highway 3, and this was sort of an update and revisit of that study to kind of refresh and look at issues that were coming along that MDT was concerned about. I believe online we have Curtis Schneeber, who's the district project development engineer, and I believe Mike Taylor, who's the MDT administrator for Region 5 is okay. Anyway, so we have MDT representation, so I know Curtis can certainly chime in if needed from that standpoint, but we wanted to make sure we could bring this to you. So the consultants are going to here give you the overview of this project. They're up to we're at the process of recommendations and information on how to manage the corridor going forward, and also identifying opportunities to make improvements as the corridor as development occurs. So I'll hand it off to Sarah and Lisa, and we can go from there. Thanks.
How do you project it up there? No. All right, thanks everyone. So again, my name is Sarah Patterson. I'm the project manager with Dowell for this corridor study. And this will be just a brief 10-minute presentation just to kind of cover some high-level takeaways and findings from this presentation, and then also advertise that, we are just starting our public comment review period over the next 30 days as well. So essentially what I'll be covering is a study, an overview of the study, as well as the study schedule, and then our improvement options summary, and then an overview of the access management plan. So here is the corridor study limits. We looked at 5 miles of the Montana 3 corridor, extending from Apache Trail east over to the Airport Road roundabout. And essentially, that western part of the corridor is more rural in nature with a 70-mile-per-hour speed limit. As you transition east of Zimmerman Park, the corridor really transitions to more of an urban arterial with a more dense number of side street approaches. This corridor was studied for a few reasons. First being that it is a high volume corridor and traffic is expected to increase as development is planned north of the corridor. We also wanted to understand the projected impacts associated with the recently completed Skyway Drive, which now connects Montana 3 to the Heights neighborhood. And then there are several regional trails on and adjacent to the corridor, so understanding that there are non-motorized users that need to be accommodated as well. So just covering briefly what a corridor study is, as you can see here, it's really the first stage in the life cycle of a project. So it is conducted before design, right-of-way acquisition, environmental compliance, and construction. And throughout the entire life cycle, however, though, we are reaching out to get impact or input from our transportation and resource agencies, and the public. So the schedule kicked off in January last year, and we had a number of reports that we prepared, and those are all kind of summarized in those circles. We had 2 public meetings, one in June, one in November, and then we just wrapped up our draft corridor study report, which is kind of a summary of all of those interim deliverables. And essentially our next steps moving forward is we'll be posting that corridor study report on the website over the next couple of days, and then opening up that 30-day public comment period. So the purpose of the study was to identify the corridor needs and objectives, to identify our short-term and long-term improvement options, as well as cost estimates and funding sources for improvements, and then lastly, to develop an access management plan for the corridor. And one thing I wanted to mention real quick on the cost estimates, they may seem high because we're looking at improvement options that may be implemented 15 or 20 years in the future. So we are including inflation in those cost estimates as well. So the first need that rose to the top as we were analyzing data for this corridor is improving traffic safety. So there are 115 total crashes over the 5-year period where we analyzed data. 29 of those resulted in injury and 3 in serious and or fatal crashes. So about half of those crashes occurred at intersections and a quarter of them were rear end. So a lot of the improvement options that we identified were really seeking to improve corridor safety and reduce fatalities and injuries in support of Vision Zero, as well as improving our non-motorized safety. The other need that rose to the top was improving corridor traffic operations. So there are currently 12,000 vehicles per day on the corridor. Looking 20 years back, there were only 6,000 vehicles per day. And then forecasting into the future, we're expecting about 19,000 vehicles per day. So a lot of our improvement options also seek to accommodate that future travel demand, as well as improve our intersection operations in the future and maintain reasonable access. So this is just a high-level summary of our improvement options. The first one I wanted to highlight was adding a center turn lane on Montana 3, essentially from Rod and Gun Club East, about 2 miles. Purpose of that center turn lane is to allow those left-turning vehicles a place to safely wait and make their left turn in traffic. Other improvement options we're recommending are a new or upgraded roundabout at the Skyway Drive, essentially upgrading that to a 2-lane roundabout, new roundabouts at the Rod and Gun Club Road and AJ Way intersections, turn lanes at other key intersections along the corridor, a pedestrian tunnel on the east leg of Skyway Drive roundabout. Essentially, that would be to connect those trails north and south of Highway 3, as well as improving sight distance along the Skyline Trail. There are several other recommended improvements that aren't depicted, though. We have access management plan recommendations. I'll summarize some of that in the next coming slides, and then travel demand management, which is just generally our recommendations for employers along the corridor to reduce the peak hour travel on the corridor. One thing I also wanted to mention was when you make infrastructure improvements along a corridor, it does impact your travel speeds. So as these infrastructure improvements go in, we would also be evaluating how speeds are changing and if a speed limit reduction is warranted. So next, going to just briefly change gears to talk about the access management plan. So to define access management is essentially the coordinated planning and design of access between our roads and development. And overall arching goal of access management is to just reduce the number of conflict points on the corridor. Without access management, our corridors can deteriorate functionally and aesthetically, which is just one example you see at the bottom of the screen with that image. So our goals of access management are to promote safety, to maintain efficient traffic flow, to preserve property values and attract economic development, and then support our neighborhood livability, and also to preserve the long-term functionality of the system. So here's just some high-level examples of what access management can look like. So here's one example where business has 2 access points, and if we can, let's eliminate or consolidate the number of approaches that the business has. Or you see here where we have a shared access for 2 businesses, which is on the property line, or removing that access, so the access to the business is on the frontage road or the side street. So we made access recommendations for the entire 5-mile corridor, but we're not planning to go through every single one tonight. We're just giving you kind of a snapshot of one example. You can see here the blue represents our residential approaches, the purple are the, I guess, public named streets, and then the orange represents our field approaches. So you can see here at approach 31, what we're recommending specifically is that we realign that northern approach so it is directly opposite approach 32. Reason for that is a safety improvement. You can see if 2 left turners were to exit those approaches at the same time, having those approaches directly aligned prevents their turning movement paths from intersecting. And then at approach 34, what we're recommending is converting that to a right-in, right-out in the future. That's the eastern approach to Masterson Circle, where we would have the roundabout splitter islands impacting the turning movements at that intersection. And then we're also recommending closure of 3 of the field access points in this section of the corridor. Reason being those field access points have access to their parcels just through the adjacent side streets. So we had quite a bit of public involvement and stakeholder meetings throughout our development of this plan. We sent out letters to all of the adjacent landowners in early November, just providing them a link to the access management plan in its draft form. And then we also had our public involvement meetings in November where we were able to discuss some of concerns we heard from specific landowners. And then we also held some follow-up meetings after that public meeting, one-on-one with a couple of specific landowners who had concerns. So what we've done at this point is updated the access management plan, and that'll be up on the website in the next couple days for another public review. And as in terms of our next step, what we're really looking for from all of you is just kind of your review and make sure you're aware of this plan and how to implement it in the future as development occurs along the corridor. And then eventually the plan will be adopted by the Transportation Commission as well. And in terms of final kind of last steps, I just wanted to mention this is a link to the corridor study website at that QR code. So I would encourage you to have that available. And then there will also be some news releases over the next couple of days when those final study documents are up there for your review. So this is our contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us after the meeting, or we do have a couple of minutes now to answer questions as well.
All right. Councilmember Nicholson.
Is there an existing example in Billings of something that this will eventually look like?
An example corridor you're thinking? Yeah, I guess that's a good question. I can't think of one that rises to the top right away.
Well, this is going to look like some other road in Billings, I'm thinking. You know, so if someone asks me, what's it going to be like? And I say, well, it's going to be like, you know, Kukulski Way or something like that.
I guess what I would say, and this is sort of general, but my understanding would be that ultimately this would look a lot like one of your principal arterials that we have now in Billings. It wouldn't. I mean, Shiloh's not a great example. Grand Avenue may be like part of what we're doing with the expansion out there that we're going to redo further west. But an arterial, maybe parts of Central and Mac Vogelsong, our city engineers here, he could chime in. Anyway, I think ultimately we're going to end up in that kind of a situation where it'll look like a city principal arterial street from Zimmerman east. But I don't know if you want to add.
Councilmember Boyette.
Just a quick one. I noticed you have 115 accidents over 5 years. That's 23 accidents a year. Is that average? Is that normal or is that excessive? I'm sure Shiloh and Grand Avenue have more than that. So what is the point of that? Just to say that there was accidents, or is there a reason for that one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, in terms of relative comparison, I would say the roundabouts, of course, had the highest number of crashes because they have the highest side street approach traffic. And so I would say they're roughly comparable to other roundabouts in the Billings area. But I think traffic safety is always our top priority. So I think we're just trying to raise the flag that, that is the top priority here.
Curtis may want to chime in on this a little bit as well, but this corridor also has received a lot of public input. I know that also helped to drive this corridor study to the top of the list.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. Sorry for not being here at the very beginning of your presentation. Being that that road is Highway 3 is state road route, whatever route. Are there any discussion on the state of doing anything along that area? Because it's 2 lanes on the other side of the airport. It's 2 lanes each direction, but there it's only 1 lane. Is there any discussion about the state doing anything about that?
What we were speaking to, so Sarah has brought up the map of recommendations right there.
But I mean, where's the city come into this? When you have the state, where's the city input into this whole thing?
Yeah, so I think a lot of these improvement options, the state would be the primary funding source. I think that's true, but I think there's a lot of collaboration that will go in with the city in terms of, in general, just envisioning what type of improvements are going in, what type of specifics. I know the city really took the lead on implementing some improvements along Skyline Trail this past summer. So they're definitely involved as well with the improvements along this corridor.
So again, I just wanted to say that talking about all this is based upon the state wanting to do something, and this is the input to this. Okay, that's when I read the information, I didn't get that understanding. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, I think this is a project that's probably already need to be done right now. So I guess the question is, when do you think this, now the study is pretty much done, when do you think this should actually go forward and get built? What's the timeline on something like this?
If you look at the corridor study documents, it does have a timeline for recommended improvements. A lot of those are needed sooner than they're stated in that document. For example, a lot of the timelines are 12 to 15 to 20 years out. And that's
10 to 15 years out, okay.
Yeah, and that's, again, based on our funding sources. Curtis, did you want to hop in there and mention anything?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Curtis Schneeber. I'm the District Project Development Engineer here in Billings for MDT. Thank you, council members and Mayor Nelson for having us. Yeah, this is a tough question. So I guess to give a general overview, we have about $450 million worth of projects that are currently in some form of development right now, just within our Billings district. So that's 78 projects that I last counted. We do want to do something here, but we do have quite a backlog of projects that we have to get through. That's kind of the reason, one of the reasons why we did this project is, or this corridor story, is we wanted to find out what the community wants, and we didn't want to just put something in there that is not wanted. So we wanted to get feedback from stakeholders and the community. So this feedback is very important. Now from here on, it's more of a trying to figure out how we can fund this. I think we're gonna have to look at some grants. We're gonna have to look at, see if the city can put urban funding or CMAQ funding towards that. And I know that good bulk of that's going to be going towards Grand Avenue in the near future. But yeah, we're just going to try to find ways to cobble something together, but it
Well,
might be a while.
I appreciate that. I guess the sooner the better would be helpful if we can do that. But a couple of questions specifically about the project itself. You mentioned the new roundabout at the Skyway Drive in Zimmerman. Is that going to, and again, 2-lane, is that going to include now a underpass for the trail along Skyway Drive?
Yeah, that's what you see as the kind of brown symbol east of that roundabout.
Okay, so that's actually crossing.
That would be an underpass.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the slower speed limit, you mentioned that possibly it'd be a slower speed limit. I really hope there is, because right now, I mean, Skyway Drive is 45, then you have 50 on the other side of that. And so it just really needs to be slowed down quite a bit. I think you'd help with the traffic accidents probably as well on that. Oh, in the community where you're going to do the right in, right out, was there any objection from the community on that limitation, or where they can't turn left out of that, their entrance anymore?
We didn't hear any specific concerns, and I think because that Masterson Circle does have 2 access points, it's kind of a loop.
So they know if they need to go left, they're going to go the other exit out. All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the council? Hi, Mr. Aspenleiter.
And I'll speak wearing both hats here. To level set expectations, I think the consultant's correct. Like, we're not, if it's left up to MDT funding and MDT programming the way that it's programmed right now, it's unlikely that we're going to see anything at least in the next 5 to 7 years. It's not, there isn't anything programmed in the 5-year TCP with MDT that we just set back in November. There's not even a program created. And it's probably going to take another 2 years to even get a program created out off of this study, which means then it's another 5 to 7 years to actually get that project built. So the reality, to level set expectations that something's going to happen out here anytime in any of our tenure on this council is probably unlikely, waiting for MDT funding in its current form and format. So the reality is, if we're going to do anything with this, the city is going to need to sponsor something like a bill grant or something like that. And the city's going to have to take the lead on this, with that being managed by the city. And I would encourage the city to do that. We do these projects at half the cost of MDT running these projects. And I'll give you an example. The turn lanes that are proposed up there by AJ Way is proposed as a roundabout. The budget for that roundabout in the study is $13 million. That's ridiculous. The turn lanes to the east of that on Huey Way are estimated out at $5.5 million. We did the subdivision for the Blaines, creating that commercial park. And as a part of our cost estimating and a part of our traffic contributions, we had contractors' cost estimate putting that turn lane in to the tune of $550,000, not $5.5 million. That gives you a sense of what it costs when we allow MDT to do these projects. Understanding this is an MDT highway, and we have to remember that. But if we're going to get serious about actually trying to get something done up there, we're going to have to take the reins and lead this, because if not, MDT is not. And in fairness, MDT has spent almost $125 million in infrastructure projects and will be close to over $200 million by the time we get the bypass done in the next 3 years over the last 10 years in the Billings urban area. We have a $100 million reconstruct project that is unfunded between Rockville and Red Lodge. Like, MDT has to start spending some money outside the Billings urban area also, because those roads are falling apart. So the reality is, if we're going to wait for MDT to do something, it's not going to happen in any of our tenure. Just to level set this for the public and for the council.
Okay, well, there is no action needed from the council, but according to the agenda, there's a public comment period after this. So if we don't have any further questions from the council, I'll open it up to public comment. one more chance for the public to weigh in on this? All right, thank you, you two. Really appreciate your time. All right, I know it's customary to take a 7:30 break for, I don't know how many minutes, but let's go ahead and take a break and
Mr.
come back
Mayor,
here.
We usually do a formal break for our business meetings because we all have to be on screen, but we kind of have in the past done it informally during work sessions of take a break as you need one. So it's
Okay.
totally up to you.
Anybody
but-
need a break? Otherwise, we can move right into 2023 Long-Range Transportation Plan. All right, let's take a 4-minute break. Plan and Metropolitan Planning Organization. Ms. Maddox, you're on.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to present this tonight. Going through this, I will get going here. Okay, so the purpose of this project that the MPO completed stemmed from a review that was completed of the MPO in 2024. This was completed by Federal Highway Administration, that's FHWA, Federal Transit Administration, FTA, and MDT to review the MPO processes and plans and how we do those and to make sure that we're in compliance with our federal guidelines. There were several items that came out of that. Overall, the MPO operates very well, and we did receive several kudos for that. One of the things that came out of that, and I think I'm going to jump ahead because this is kind of repetitive in the next couple slides. This was the Project Advisory Committee. We worked extensively with our federal highway representatives as well as our MDT representatives to make sure that everything we did in this long-range transportation plan update was completed under those federal guidelines and met those requirements. So the key findings from the 2023 LRTP review found that again, the MPO was in very good compliance with our regulations, but there were a couple things, primarily our long-range transportation plan, which was adopted in 2023 and approved by Federal Highways and MDT at that time. There were some things that came out after that adoption that we needed to address. The first was to look at our financial plan, and if you had a chance to look at the long-range transportation plan, it's very significant. These are projects that are out 20 years, and there are 3 types of projects. They're committed, recommended, and illustrative. So the projects that are committed are those that are found in our transportation improvement program, our capital improvements plan. They include projects from MDT, the city, the county, and we needed to go through that to make sure that we could demonstrate fiscal constraint, which means that whatever we show that we're spending in 20 years, that we have adequate funding to do that based on our revenue sources that we will be receiving in 20 years. So we wanted to make sure that we were constrained in what we were proposing that we would be spending. The next one was to update our MPO planning boundary. In 2023, obviously the census was completed in 2020. However, we did not get our new urbanized boundaries until after 2023. With that, we found that there were a couple areas that were actually urbanized that were outside our, our MPO planning boundary that we needed to make adjustments. And working with Federal Highways and MDT, we determined that we could wait to try to do that either at the next long-range transportation plan update, which is in 2028, which will be starting next year in 2027, or we could do it as part of this amendment. And we chose to do this as part of our amendment because our boundary determines how much funding we get through for transportation planning and for capital improvements. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing that. The third bullet there, ensure the next LRTP fully addresses performance measures and targets. We have actually did that part of this to make sure it complied with federal guidelines and our tips. So we made sure we did that. Even though it really wasn't a part of this, we wanted to make sure we had updated language. Enhance the tip to talk about those performance measures. Our tip again is our transportation improvement program. Those are our capital dollars that are spent. We wanted to make sure that we were identifying performance measures in our tip document. We are also doing that now. And then one of the things previously we had not a huge MPO staff, and our transportation planning coordinator before me had been here a long time. And when he retired, he took a lot of that institutional knowledge with him. So one of the things that we're working towards is documenting all our MPO processes. So anybody that steps into that role has a process outlined for them, how to do a tip, how to do those various required documents that we have to do under federal highways. So the first one I'm going to go through is the updating of our metropolitan planning area. Again, the census dictates what our urbanized area is within our jurisdiction. And this is based on population density as well as large traffic generators such as box stores or large subdivisions. And one of the things that we realized is this opportunity to bring those couple areas in that were urbanized outside that area. It was a good time to evaluate what we were including in that planning boundary, where could we potentially shrink up some areas where we don't anticipate urban development within the next 20 years, which would require water, sewer, those types of services, and what areas that we could anticipate urbanizing in 20 years that could be affected. So this is the current boundary as it sits today, and you will notice those two circled areas. The MPO boundary, planning boundary, is in those orange lines, and you see those two areas circled in the northeast and the southwest that came in as urbanized areas are not included in our planning area boundary. So we wanted to make sure that we included those. Also, if you look at that boundary, you see quite of an extensive area to the southeast down towards the Blue Creek area. And obviously we extend north, and we also extend east into Lockwood due to their ability of water and sewer and to have those more urbanized densities within that area. So after reviewing this with MDT and looking at census blocks and anticipated growth of the urbanized area, this is the proposed planning area we are bringing forward. As you will see, I'll start with kind of the southeast corner. You can see where we shrunk up a lot of that Blue Creek area between Briarwood and Lockwood. We do not anticipate that area urbanizing in the next 20 years with very large urbanized type development just due to the lack of services. On the other side of Blue Creek Road, where it tucks up there towards the river, that's the landfill. Obviously, we do not anticipate the landfill urbanizing in the next 20 years. So we took that area out. We expanded. Those orange areas are showing where we expanded. You can see we expanded a little bit in Lockwood just because of the expansion and correction of the Lockwood Water and Sewer District and that possibility. We included that northeast corner that was left out before and actually expanded it a little bit as we anticipate as the Billings bypass gets done, and that area will continue to grow and we could see urbanized development up there. And then we kind of fixed the boundary on the northwest corner there to kind of coordinate with where Alkali Creek and Highway 3 intersect and make sure that we capture that. And then you'll see the most significant change is on the west end, which probably is not a huge surprise. We continue to see development out there, and based on our growth patterns and the possibility of urbanized development continuing, and not necessarily just because of city water and sewer, but we have many county subdivisions. When you start clumping those together, that creates urbanized traffic. So we want to make sure that we include those in those areas. Why this is important is because this gives us an opportunity to spend transportation planning dollars in these areas to look at corridor studies, intersections improvements, safety, those types of things. We know those roadways on the west end have some high speeds and have more density of vehicle traffic traveling on them. We're seeing more crashes out there. It gives us an opportunity to look at those areas a little bit more closely with federal planning dollars. Next, I'll jump in real quick to the project list. This was our probably biggest haul on this, was working with Federal Highways to ensure that our project list within our long-range transportation plan is fiscally constrained. So as you look down on that chart right there, you'll see that in 2045, we're anticipating just over $950 million coming into the Billings MPO in transportation planning and capital dollars. Of that, we're anticipating with our project list as it currently states is a little over 735,000. So we are fiscally constrained in this document showing all our different projects. So that is a good thing. Federal Highway is happy when we're fiscally constrained, and we assure that we're meeting those federal guidelines. So these were the, one of the next things we talked about was assigned funding sources. This is out of our TIP, and this chart basically shows all our federal funding sources that we received. There's approximately about 15 of them. And out of those, we needed to determine which projects and funding sources were eligible to the MPO. Some are only eligible to MDT, like National Highway or Interstate Maintenance, where they manage the freeways. Some of them are related to the MPO itself in the city and the county, whether it be urban surface or urban transportation planning dollars, which is how we're going to build Grand Avenue, congestion mitigation air quality funding, transportation alternatives, those types of projects, which are available to the MPO. So we wanted to make sure that we had funding sources for the correct projects for which they're being submitted. Cost estimation, we worked through that to make sure that we were identifying inflation and we had a across the board way we were doing cost estimates. The next one was non-infrastructure projects. There was some confusion in our plan list because as an MPO, we are required to do continuous and cooperative and coordinated transportation planning. That's why you'll see a lot of these documents come back to you every few years because we're required to do that. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't have confusion when we talk about, let's say, the Fifth Avenue corridor study. That is a study. We don't have any money allocated to a Fifth Avenue corridor implementation project as of yet. So we wanted to make sure that we created a project list that showed which ones were PL studies and which one were actually construction. Multi-phase projects, for example, the Billings bypass, multiple phases, multiple funding sources. We wanted to make sure that we had clarity in those top projects that had multiple funding sources to meet that requirement under FHWA. Project descriptions, we wanted to make sure that we had reviewed all our project descriptions, that they weren't just one quick little blurb that really didn't give any information to those that are reading this document for clarity for not only our public officials, but for our community, so they had a clear idea what the project was. And there was some formatting issues in the document. As you can imagine, when you have, 400 projects, it's very difficult to make sure that we're meeting and it's easy and clarity of those tables and guidelines for that. Multiple project source documents. We wanted to make sure that, again, as I mentioned, we have basically 3 types of projects in the LRTP. We have recommended or committed, recommended, and illustrative. Those committed projects are projects that are identified in the Transportation Improvement Program or the Capital Improvement Program. With this project, we did not remove projects, add projects. That requires a public process and planning process. This only made sure that we were in conformance with those documents that we had available as CMPO at the time. So when we start our next long-range transportation plan update, that will be an opportunity for the City Council, the county, and the community to come together for public outreach and tell us what projects we need to have in those categories and which ones need to be reviewed and looked at further. So we want to make sure that we meet those. The general format of the project list, this final one, again, it was very confusing if you look through that prior list to read that. And one of the things that I'm really excited for that came out of this is we created a data dashboard that's on our MPO website. So if you're reviewing a certain subdivision or a certain project, or a community member is wondering what's going on with transportation, they can actually go to this dashboard, use drop-down boxes. It's very interactive, and they'll tell you where the project is, when it's programmed to potentially be constructed, the funding sources, and who's the lead agency, whether it be the city, the county, or MDT. We're really excited about that data dashboard, and we're hoping to grow on that in the future with other data that we have available. We have so much data, we're trying to find a platform that people can use it. So we're really excited about that. As I mentioned, we did update our performance measures to meet the federally required performance measures that are in our TIP, and we made sure that we adjusted all our appendices and references in our long-range transportation plan to reflect that. And as part of that, I requested our consultant that helped us do this create this very handy-dandy cheat sheet. It's so much easier to find what changes were made in this document with this than trying to search through it. So we tried to do that for a lot of our transportation documents because we know they're large and very hard to navigate. We do this often for our TIP. So when you see those financial documents come in through our TIP, you have a way to actually navigate those. And that's what this is. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to take this out. This is what Planning Board reviewed at their meeting on last Tuesday night. They're going to recommend approval to the Policy Coordinating Committee. The Technical Advisory Committee is recommending that the governing bodies forward a recommendation of approval. I'm not asking for any motion tonight. This will come to you at your regular meeting, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, before we go to questions, no action is required at this meeting, just like Laura said, but we do have time for council questions. Having seen none, our agenda calls for public comment on this issue, so I'm opening it up for public comment.
Hi, I'm just Chris Glenn. I just want to say I really believe in planning. I'm a system engineer. I believe in planning. And I think it's really important that we can get that cost of services study done so we know and you guys know how much it costs to add water, add sewer, add roads, add all those things as well as people want to come into the city. And I was impressed by the council meeting where I think it was Meadowlark Trailer Park. I might have the Blaines, so you know Billings, Blaines Trailer Park, wanting water. And I get that. I know people who live there. The water is awful. But you guys push back and you know, I was like, that's a hard thing to do. And I really want to just acknowledge that and say that the cost of services would help to, if you know exactly those numbers, to know how much it's going to cost to extend that. So please, I know the project to try and get that cost of services study didn't turn out like planned. You didn't get what you were expecting, but please do, I encourage you to get that finished so that you have good numbers and then you can apply it more consistently without just trying to, well, is it good? Is it bad? It'd be really hard to do without numbers. So just because you're talking about water and sewer and all those things.
Thank you. Any further public comment on this issue? All right, seeing none, I will close item number 3 and we'll move on to item number 4, timing of traffic impact submittals. This is part 1 of a council initiative by Council Member Aspenleiter, timing of traffic impact study submittals. I believe that the council person initiative sponsor gets to speak to this first. So Councilman Aspenleiter, if you'd take it away.
Perfect. I'm tired of being here tonight. I'm sure everybody else is tired of being here tonight, so we can make this quick. I appreciate Chris and the staff working on this here over the last couple days. I had a whole lot of discussion for this, but I don't think we need any of it because we've come to, a middle ground resolution to move forward on the timing of when these traffic studies are submitted. So I'll let the staff talk briefly about that, hopefully less than 3 minutes brief about that part. And then we can talk about the second part in actually creating an impact fee structure for traffic. When we started this initiative, I believe Councilmember Neese also said, if we're going to talk about an impact fee system for traffic, we should also consider public safety impact fees for fire and police, and at least consider that and what it would look like and what it would take. So I think that's a part of the conversation, but hopefully we can skip through this first part of my initiative because I think that's solved and we don't need to talk about that anymore and get to the actual meat of it. My goal here tonight would be just to give staff some guidance about whether we want them to dig into what this would look like, how it would happen, and what it would cost to do it, because there will be a consultant associated with this, and then come back at a secondary work session with some information, because they don't have that information yet tonight. So that's it. I'll turn it over to Chris.
If this is working, there we go. As Scott had said, we've talked through this quite a bit over the last several days and last week. Kind of on the practical side, on the ground, Mac and Anna and their teams are who deal with this. So Anna's actually gonna kind of kick us off relative to or describe how we want to move forward as we've got a series of amendments coming to you relative to the code in late spring, early summer anyways.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having us here tonight. To echo what Councilmember Aspenleiter said, we had these discussions. What we've come to is we're going to be accepting a draft of the traffic impact study at what you see on your screen as at completeness and sufficiency submittal. So this would be when an application comes into our offices, we're doing a cursory review of everything. So the example traffic impact study summary that Councilmember Aspenleiter shared, that hits those. And then doing the full traffic impact study submittal at preliminary plat application. The reason we're not going to immediately update the code is honestly, it would be by the time we're updating the code for the Montana Land Use Planning Act anyway. We're going to implement this immediately and then reflect those code updates whenever we bring that to you for the subdivision regulation updates and correspondence. So I think there is an efficiency there in regards to practicing it and then implementing it into the code. That will give us the chance to just completely define what we'd like to see at that draft traffic impact study. We have a lot of different consultants, but using that as a model and going based off of that so it's just clear and easy for everyone to follow.
Is this working? There we go. Just 3 quick points. I think we are in agreement on this sort of timeline on the TIS. I'm the engineer, so I'm like, what are the downsides? We think those are few, and we still have a lever that we could pull if we have some, and I don't mean this inference tonight, but we do get some crummy studies from time to time. We still have an abort level if we get one of those. I'm not suggesting that's, but that could happen from other, out of state consultants, what you have. So we have that covered, and I'm the optimist, so let's try it.
Lee, the larger component of the initiative, and Scott referenced it. I'm not here tonight to tell you here's the dollar figure on impact fees, but certainly as our staff, it has been budgeted for. I think it possibly was 2 budget cycles ago and then was carried over, but working internally relative to the staff side to bring to you, what's the cost, who basically is the champion of the program so that it can move forward. All areas, and impact fees is one of those ways to bring in revenue, have cost causers be closer to what's paying for services that aligns with the initiative, it aligns with direction and past councils. And I suspect so far in our brief time together, there's not a pivot in that relative to this new group. I think there's only stronger support, though we're very early on in the process for the 3 new areas. Of course, we have them on water, on sewer, on stormwater. This opens the conversation about streets, fire, and police.
Councilmember Shaw.
I'm very supportive of staff. I've already had a conversation with Chris. I said, please, whatever it is that you need to get this cost of services study into some format we can understand and use, please put it into the budget this year so that we can actually get that information back. He's, of course, been very receptive. So I certainly hope that's the case. I agree. We need impact fees for roads, fire, whatever we can put them on, in my opinion. So just encouragement, and wanted to let the rest of council know that definitely hope it moves forward very quickly.
And the only thing I want to respond to in clarifying is just managing expectations. The difference between cost of services relative to our general fund services like law enforcement, parks, fire, versus system development charges or impact fees for those things are 2 significantly different conversations. And on the impact fee side of the equation, it's very refined. I mean, been several communities all around the country and in Montana, under Montana law, specifically identifying this SDF side of the equation. So that's what we can move forward with. And sorry to disappoint, that will not be a full cost of services analysis, as much as that's something we also, as a body, want to get better at.
Thank you. CM Aspenleiter.
The kind of to piggyback on that, I think the traffic impact fees, I think, are the easy one. We already do that through this TIS process by analyzing intersections, those types of things, and then subdividers and developers pay contributions tied to specific intersections. So there is a mechanism that we're doing. I think it's a bad mechanism. I think it's outdated, and it is not efficient or effective in getting dollars to the ground, which is part of why I want to look at this system. The tricky one is going to be public safety. And the mayor made a good comment as we discussed this afternoon. What I don't want to do is blow up the easy one by trying to tie the hard ones to it and then get nothing done. That would not be beneficial to anybody. So what I would encourage us to do is have staff look at what it would take to analyze creation of a public safety impact fee so that we have the data, we can talk about it intelligently, and we can make an educated decision about that. And at that point in time, I would argue that those three things don't need to be coupled together. But what we really need to do is understand what it's going to cost, what it's going to look like, and be able to communicate that and have that conversation with the development community.
I'd put parks in there too. We just need that information.
So
Whatever we do with it,
Agreed.
but we need the information.
that's my pitch to you all, is to give staff direction to go pull that data together, find the costs, outline what a process like this would look like, and then come back to us to have that conversation.
CM Boyette?
Did you have a timeline, and would this take a week, a month, 6 months? Any idea?
I'll let Chris answer that question, but my hope is that this is something that we have a follow-up conversation about before the end of the first quarter of this calendar.
I think those conversations, absolutely. I think for as you well know, complete study to implement, I mean, that to comply with statute, you're looking at a 12 months, or you're adopting something that says, here's what the system element charge is for transportation system. Relative to parks, that has been specifically, as I understand it, removed from the statute as an allowed. So I don't think parks is an option anymore legally in the state of Montana. Remember, you do have cash in lieu and parkland dedication that's required in statute. So they have made it more restrictive, not less, it's more restrictive, not less. I mean, you're talking separate. Fire is very, very refined and defined in the statute and around the state. Police will be the one that's a little more challenging, and roads, as Scott said, is several cities use roads. It's complex, but it's been used all over the country and in Montana several times.
CM Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad to see this point one is taken care of. It sounds like everything should work, and if you guys say if it's not going to work, you're gonna just change it. Do I understand that correctly? Okay. Scott, I think you're right. At the time, I wanted to see public safety in that, but I also I always felt that the traffic study formulas just were not accurate in what they were charging. It may be because the timing was so long, it took 20 years to get the intersection, and the cost was 4 times as much. That's why it wasn't done, because there just wasn't enough money that we were having to do some of these intersections. I remember when Dennis got the light at the end of Wixon and St. Andrews, we had to get a used light. When they were replacing some street lights somewhere else, Dennis was able to get us a used light up there so we can actually get a stoplight up there. And so it's because there wasn't enough money there. And so if we're going to do, one of my concern is if we're going to do these impacts and we're going to take that money and get the money in the ground, but it won't be used, and then maybe at that spot, it may be used somewhere else that's been needed. I want to make sure we're collecting enough, because if it's not going to be used in that particular spot, we're going to spend it across the city. When the need is there, I don't want to be having to wait for someone else to do a development to do that thing that's needed. So I guess during the study, that's going to hopefully give us that information, so we're not running short of funds when projects are needed. I think I mentioned to you earlier that this Highway 3, that should have been built by now. It's needed right now, but it's going to be 15 years, they said, maybe, if it get that done. By that time, it's going to be really a bad traffic area to be driving on. And so whatever we do, I think we need to make sure there's going to be funds that we can build the infrastructure out right away. And so, yeah, I think, and you're right, I don't want to hold up public safety on this. If we need to separate them into 3 things, let's just do them, and it'll be easier for the development community anyway to, here's one impact fee on this one, we got that done, and then we go to a next one until we get it all finished off. And if we can't get it done in 2 years, well, council here can continue it on, but at least it'll be in place.
Anything else any other questions? All right, so our agenda says we're going to open this up to public comment. So regarding timing of traffic impact studies and this initiative, if there's any public comment, please stand up. You'll have 3 minutes. Any public comment regarding this? All right, Councilmember Aspenleiter, since this is your baby, you want to kind of enumerate what our directives to staff are?
I think if it's kosher with the rest of the council, I just ask staff to continue forward, pulling a budget and a timeline and a scope of what this would look like to start that with all three, knowing that we may well separate traffic on its own. But while we're doing this, let's just get the full package of information with respect to public safety as well.
Would you like a target date on there, sir?
What's that?
Could we put a target date on there so we move forward?
By the end of, by April 1st.
So with a report back to us by April 1st. And do we have unanimous consent?
100%, but just what's going to be reported back?
We're going to have a second session with them coming back with the information for us to talk about
A
putting it on
reasonable
a
timeline? Okay.
Yeah, relative, I mean, it will not be the analysis. It'll be, here's the firms, here's the cost, here's how its timeline and scope will work to.
Just checking. It seems like a lot of work to get done in like 3 months. So, okay.
All right, so go forward and guess.
And guess.
All right, so that pretty much closes this item. We do have one council discussion item. I know it's of great importance, so I'm going to keep you behind just a few more seconds. But regarding this setup for meetings, I've heard a lot of requests to go back up there for our work sessions. And so if you're in favor of going back to the dais for the work sessions to save the time and money that it costs to set this up, everybody just raise your hands. Okay, we're good. It looks like we will go back. If we want to move to another place, then I think we can address that at a later time. All right. Let's see, Chris, highlighting upcoming agenda items.
Brief. So as you well know, this morning orientation, we got finally out of the building. So we were at the fire station, thanks to Chief Hoppel, work they did and his team. And then we got over to the library. So next Monday, we're at the airport. Pay close attention, please. You're not going to we're going to the ops center. So the address is on there. Don't show up in the terminal. You'll be in the wrong place. This is west of the terminal, kind of on the frontage road there. So the address will take you there. Easier parking, walk right in. We'll start with code enforcement and then airport and do a tour there. Next week, you got park rec fees, got family justice center. We internally are kicking off the FY27 budget process. So you won't see it for several months. We're starting that process here in the upcoming days and weeks as far as our internal work. But that's really the big picture now relative to continuing with orientation session through January into February, maybe even into March, and then budget. So that's what I've got. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kukowski. And just to make things a little more confusing, we have one more item for council discussion.
Thanks.
TM Lindley. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I didn't even raise my hand. Two things actually. First of all, just for the minutes and maybe to make sure that from a public perspective that there's no confusion, there was a motion back in December to talk about the police advisory board at this meeting. And the only reason we're not doing it is because as a courtesy to Councilmember Kennedy to make sure he's here for the discussion. So I just want to make sure it's clear to everyone. We're still going to have that conversation, just not tonight.
Absolutely. In my error that I didn't catch that the motion included the date, which I would just say is a good reminder for all of you that when we do move something or an emotion, if we're date specific, it makes it a little tougher. Sometimes it's just better to leave a date off of it, giving us some more flexibility. So my mistake to not catch that when Mr. Kennedy is who made that motion to table the issue, bring it to a work session. So when he asked me, hey, I can't be there that night, it didn't even cross my mind other than not a problem. Bill will move it.
Perfect. And then the second thing is Who around this table remembers TAB? Anybody remember TAB? Like the drink?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want a TAB, but I don't want the drink. I want a technical advisory board for the city. So I've mentioned that around the council here, but my plan is to put an initiative together to have the conversation, assuming that people kind of understood or agreed with the idea. Generally speaking, just to make sure, we've got a lot of great technical minds in this community. People are more than willing to serve in a fashion kind of like the energy group that can help guide, provide recommendations. I think that would really help us, especially with things like potential police system changeover. We want to make sure all those things go well, cybersecurity, et cetera. I think getting help from the community would be a really good idea. So just want to make sure it's clear that I'm headed in that direction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any other council discussion? Mr. Boyette?
If everybody noticed, we have 3 working elevators. Yay!
All right, thanks for that, sir. That's very nice of you to point out. All right, we're going to now open the 6th session of public comment for tonight. If there's any public comment on non-agenda items, please feel free to stand up. If you've spoken about something once, you can't speak about it again. But if you have something new to say, you're more than welcome to come up and say hi.
Hi. Again, my name is Jennifer Strong. I'm a taxpayer and a homeowner in Ward 3. I want to preface my statement by saying that for the past 30 years, I have had a relationship with the formerly communist country of Albania. I've lived there for a time in the early 2000s, and I have many dear friends who grew up and were adults under the scourge of communism. Albania was the North Korea of its day. I have seen with my own eyes the devastation and destruction and the after effects that come to a fully socialized socialist society, which is what a communist country is. Marxism leads to socialism, which leads to communism, which leads to slavery. I don't say that as a theory. I say it on behalf of my Albanian friends who lived and suffered through it, some of whom have parents who to this day barely speak above a whisper for fear of violence, imprisonment, and hard labor. It is through that lens that I follow the far left in this country relatively closely. Daily, we are hearing that Minneapolis is devolving further and further into chaos. I'm not sure how many of you are aware that Minneapolis is the national headquarters for multiple national communist organizations. Most notably, the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. And I quote from their national website, FRSO is recruiting and building toward the creation of a new communist party based on Marxism-Leninism, end quote. They're not just talking about philosophy, they mean Bolshevik-style revolution, violence. Perhaps this explains a lot of the violence that's going on in Minneapolis. Also, because of all this interest and concern, I can tell you with absolute certainty that much of the weekly protesting that is ramped up around Billings is not just an organic movement. A lot of it is being spearheaded by a revolutionary communist organizer who arrived here this summer and has been infiltrating local organizations. That's not to say that there aren't already Billings residents who already lean that direction, only that the organizing is not at all organic. So when multiple people come in to give comment that encourages our city council to go against federal law, it leads me to wonder, just where are those sentiments coming from? With all that in mind, as a Constitution-loving American citizen, I would ask that we not follow the example of cities like Minneapolis, Portland, Chicago, New York City, cities that are all homes for violent communist organizations and looking for a fight. Since I have 16 seconds, I would like to reiterate my request that an ordinance be enacted to establish protections for the single-sex spaces that belong to women and girls. It is not unreasonable to expect privacy and safety when we enter a restroom or locker room. Single-sex spaces like restrooms, locker rooms, prisons, and sports teams, almost done, were not created to protect our feelings or our ideologies, but rather to protect our vulnerable female bodies. Thank you all again for your time and consideration.
Any further public comment tonight? Seeing none, I'll call this portion of the meeting closed. Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful and lively discussion. We are adjourned.